Chapter 552. As for the fact that Su Yu had discovered the dragon tendon, he had completely forgotten about it. In his mind, everything found here would belong to him sooner or later. With this dragon tendon, even if Shangguanqin'er intervened, she would not let Su Yu off. Dragon tendon? Su Yu was secretly shocked. The dragon tendon of an immortal spirit that had passed the tribulation could emit such a terrifying black heavenly thunder? In the Thunder Emperor's 9 books, there was a rumor that a severely injured immortal spirit had easily killed several all creations. Looking at the dragon tendon, which was as black as silk, Su Yu's eyes burned with passion. This item was priceless. Even an all creation's old monster would be tempted. Su Yu inhaled, and the dragon tendon fell into his palm. It was soft and cool like a woman's hand. It was extremely comfortable and not as terrifying as he had imagined. After all, it had emitted a bit of black heavenly thunder just now. What he did not know was that this dragon tendon had been treated by Tianjizi. Otherwise, the remnant spiritual pressure of the immortal spirit would have been enough to turn anyone below the divine master level into ashes. As for that bit of black heavenly thunder, it had been sealed for countless years. It had been emitted from the dragon tendon bit by bit, and it had not leaked out all at once. It could be said that the dragon tendon was very safe. Holding the dragon tendon, Su Yu found the feeling of using the entwined dragon silk when he had first entered the martial path. It was a familiar weapon, a familiar feeling. The only difference was that things had changed with the passage of time. Compared to the entwined dragon silk from back then, this was real dragon silk. The only regret was that this item had appeared in front of everyone. If Su Yu entered Jiuzhou one day, he might suffer a disaster for no reason. This was a top-grade material that even an all-creation's old monster could not obtain. This item was troublesome, and Su Yu's heart sank. "Brother Yu." Xia Jingyu seemed to understand Su Yu's situation. She sighed. "Why don't you come with me to see the King of Darkness after we return? He is the only one in the Zhenlong continent who can protect us." The King of Darkness was the strongest person in the Zhenlong continent, the king who had founded the Empire of Darkness. He was indeed the strongest person in the Zhenlong continent. But, unless the king has the cultivation of a divine master, I will have to think of another way, Su Yu said. Xia Jingyu was silent. Indeed, the king of the Zhenlong continent could protect them, but in Jiuzhou, which black iron box did you choose? Su Yu asked. After regaining her senses, Xia Jingyu hesitated for a while. She closed her beautiful eyes and quietly sensed her surroundings. After a long while, her gaze landed on the black iron box in her left hand. "I'll take this one. Just now, when I was in the stars, I comprehended the trajectory of the divine decree left behind by Senior Wan Xiang. My intuition tells me that this box might be related to the divine decree." Upon hearing this, Su Yu secretly clicked his tongue. Her level of comprehension was still as terrifying as ever. The descendants of the Guardians had guarded this place for countless years. Everyone in the clan had tried to comprehend the divine decree, but no one had ever been able to comprehend the divine decree left behind by the all-creation's old monsters. However, Xia Jingyu easily comprehended it. With a light tap of her hand, the black iron chest opened. When it was opened, it didn't create such an exaggerated commotion as Su Yu did, and there was only an inconspicuous jade scroll lying quietly inside. Bai Yijian furrowed his brows. The memory jade pendant. Could there be some kind of memory inside? Shangguanqin'er curled her lips and said, "You don't seem to have much luck. You got the least important thing." The jade slip was not as shocking as the dragon tendon. Xia Jingyu held the jade slip in her hand and placed it against her smooth forehead. After a moment, her eyes shone with a look of understanding and joy. She was pleasantly surprised. "Brother Yu, this is the all-creation's old man's track divine decree. It is very suitable for me." Xia Jingyu's face was filled with joy. Su Yu shrugged his shoulders. This item was indeed more suitable for Xia Jingyu's inhuman level of comprehension than any other treasure. He did not doubt that Xia Jingyu would soon be able to completely control the all creation's old monster's divine decree. Congratulations, Jingyu. Suyu was sincerely pleased. Xia Jingyu had helped him a lot. Suyu felt much better that she was happy. When she met Suyu's eyes, Xia Jingyu realized that she had lost her composure. Her expression brightened, and she could not help but lower her head. There is still one last box left. Let's open it together, Suyu said. Xia Jingyu nodded her head happily. She then worked together with Suyu to open the last black iron box. Crack! With a clear and crisp sound, the black iron box was successfully opened. Bai Yijian and Shangguan Qing'er looked over and stared at the black iron box without blinking. What would be in the last black iron box? They were not the only ones who were curious and looking forward to it. The Ghost King and Bai Zhou were also staring at the last black iron box. However, the moment the black box was opened, a pink mist suddenly rushed out from within the black iron box. Within the pink mist, a living creature the size of a palm could be vaguely seen. It was wrapped in the mist as it rushed out. Moreover, the moment it rushed out, it flew past Suyu's side. Its shocking speed was close to the speed of light. By the time Suyu realized that something was wrong, the pink living creature had already escaped from his side. His hands were empty. The dragon vein that he had been holding onto had been snatched away. Suyu was shocked. Could it be Bai Yijian was stunned? What kind of living creature is this? Could it be some kind of material? Wait, it's that real spirit. It is actually hiding in the black iron box. Shangguan Qing'er let out a delicate cry. Her eyes were filled with astonishment, and she appeared to be extremely excited. No matter how precious the materials here were, how could they compare to a young real spirit? Once it matured, it would be a supreme existence that could easily destroy all creation's old monsters. Real spirit. Bai Yijian sucked in a breath of cold air. Immediately, his eyes shone with a terrifying light. Swoosh! With a flash of his white figure, he ignored the chaotic Milky Way and forcefully barged into it. He then let out a murderous shout. This real spirit belongs to the descendants of the Guardians. Anyone who dares to snatch it will be killed without mercy. The appearance of this thing caused Bai Yijian to completely lose his composure. That was a real spirit, a real spirit. How could he still remain calm? Humph! What a joke. You don't even know whether a real spirit exists. How can you speak for the descendants of the Guardians? I will accept this real spirit on behalf of the Red Blood Palace. Shangguan Qing'er coldly snorted, and also entered the Milky Way in a flash. You are courting death. Bai Yijian's eyes were cold and filled with murderous intent. He then threw out a beam of light. Shangguan Qing'er was not afraid at all. She dealt with it calmly and only chased after him. The two fairy realm experts fought each other, causing the already chaotic stars to become even more chaotic. All the stars in the sky were spinning around chaotically, and there was no trace of the divine decree left. Bai Qi's eyes were filled with shock and excitement. Taking advantage of the chaos in the Milky Way, he rushed towards the real spirit without the suppression of the divine decree of the divine decree. You are also courting death. Bai Yijian's eyes were filled with a cold light. His white robe fluttered as he shouted angrily. His voice contained the great power of a fairy realm expert. Not only was it deafening, but it also shook one's soul, causing it to become numb. Humph! Spiritual objects of the world belong to those who are virtuous. Aren't you being too overbearing? Bai Qi's figure panicked and his eyes turned cold. Bai Yijian did not even look at him. He only said one word to Bai Qi, scram. As he spoke, his speed suddenly increased, and he rushed towards the real spirit. Shangguan Qing'er's face changed. In a moment of desperation, she took out a silver-white chain from her sleeves and wrapped it around Bai Yijian's ankle. With a flick of her wrist, the The strange thing was that with this chain, she and Bai Yijian's positions had changed. She arrived at where Bai Yijian was, and Bai Yijian appeared behind her. This chain actually had the ability to change space. Bai Yijian was furious. He took out the long and thin sword from his back and slashed across the air. With a clanging sound, the silver chain was cut in half. A treasure that was no less powerful than a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact had been cut in half just like that. Shangguan Qing'er let out a groan, as if she had been implicated. However, this sacrifice was still worth it. She had caught up to the pink mist faster than Bai Yijian. With a tearing sound, another silver chain shot out from her other sleeve. With a twirl, the chain wrapped around the pink mist. Naturally, the real spirit within it was also sealed. Was it over? From the moment the real spirit had appeared to the moment everyone had fought over it, it had only been a few seconds. The one who had the last laugh was Shangguan Qing'er. However, before Shangguan Qing'er could show her excitement, her face sank. The silver chain shrank and pierced through the pink mist. There was nothing inside, nothing at all. Swoosh! At that moment, a pink light flashed at the end of the silver chain. A pink living creature the size of a palm appeared on the chain. It was a beautiful creature that was pink all over and resembled a qilin. It had a pair of pink qilin horns, dreamy purple eyes, a body full of pink scales, and a small tail that looked like flames. At a glance, it was not a living creature. It was clearly a pink jade statue which was extremely beautiful. At that moment, the 4 hooves of the little pink qilin were stepping on the silver chain. Its purple eyes revealed an anthropomorphic mocking expression as it looked down at Shangguan Qing'er and Bai Yijian. After that, it raised its neck and flicked its tail, turning into a cloud of mist and flying away. Bai Yijian's face was filled with joy as he continued his chase. Shangguan Qing'er, on the other hand, was embarrassed. She had actually been looked down upon by a small real spirit. Holding her breath, Shangguan Qing'er also joined in the chase. Just like that, the 2 fairy realms chased each other crazily in the Milky Way spell formation. However, the qilin was very strange. Every time it was caught, it would appear in another place the next moment. It was like space teleportation, but it was not. Su Yu was the only one who was secretly shocked. It was indeed not space teleportation, but void transformation. Every time it was caught, the little qilin's body would turn from a physical state into a state of nothingness. It was like a soul. Therefore, no matter what Bai Yijian and Shangguan Qing'er did, they could not do anything to the little qilin. After a few rounds, the little qilin raised its neck high and swaggered back to the center of the Milky Way, where Su Yu was. Moreover, it stood on top of the 3 black iron boxes, as if there was no one else around. As it opened its mouth, a ferocious sucking force appeared. The 3 black iron boxes were sucked into the sucking force, becoming smaller and smaller. Finally, they became the size of pebbles and were swallowed into the little qilin's stomach. Within this little qilin's body, there was actually another universe, a space of its own. The dragon tendon had been swallowed by the little qilin. At that moment, the little qilin continued to circle around the central star as if there was no one else around. It seemed to be trying to figure out if it could swallow such a huge star. Chapter 553. Su Yu's eyes flashed. He did not chase after it blindly. The little qilin circled around and made up its mind. It bared its teeth at Su Yu and Xia Jingyu, who were standing on top of it. It wanted to tell them to leave as it was about to start eating. "Brother Yu, what should we do?" Xia Jingyu stared at the little qilin with an unfriendly expression. It had stolen Su Yu's dragon tendon. Su Yu pondered for a moment, then looked at the little qilin meaningfully. He then flew up into the air with the tip of his foot. Xia Jingyu was unwilling to compromise, but she was very obedient to Su Yu and did not want to leave with him. Once there was no one around, the little qilin happily shook its buttocks and stood up on its hind legs. Its 2 front hooves were like a human as it rubbed its palms together. It was eager to try. Its spiritual intelligence was extraordinary. Then, the little Kylan opened its mouth and repeated the same trick. An extremely powerful sucking force emerged from its mouth. Su Yu felt as if he had fallen into a whirlpool of turbulent waves. He immediately retreated with Xia Jingyu. Shangguan Qing'er and Bai Yijian, who were chasing after them, did not dare to rush forward. They stood outside the range of the sucking force and watched from afar. Is this beast born with the ability to recognize treasures? This star is not an ordinary meteorite. It was made from the bones of an all-creation's old monster demonic beast. It is indestructible, and more importantly, it is extremely heavy. It was once a treasure used by an all-creation's old monster. What? This star was Tianjizi's treasure? At this moment, under the terrifying suction force, the entire planet didn't move at all. On the other hand, 2 of the surrounding stars were swallowed by the sucking force. Gradually, the little Kylan noticed that something was wrong. It stared angrily with its purple eyes. At this moment, the pink scales on the surface of his body emitted a pink halo that resembled ripples, and the suction force suddenly increased by more than 2-fold. Su Yu and the others could not help but retreat again, returning to the top of the stairs. From a bird's-eye view, the whole Milky Way was being sucked into the little Kylan's stomach by the sucking force. However, the strange thing was that there was still no movement from the central star. The little Kylan seemed to be angry. Its purple eyes were burning with anger, and the pink scales on its body gradually turned into a weak purple glow. The sucking force doubled again. In an instant, the Milky Way spun in reverse, and all the stars were swallowed into the little Chilan's stomach. Swallowing the Milky Way in one gulp, no one could surpass him in terms of swallowing mountains and rivers. Finally, the central star moved. The entire star swayed slightly, finally showing signs of loosening. However, this only lasted for a moment before the central star suddenly sank and crashed down. Little Chilan groaned in pain and somersaulted in the air. Even with its full strength, the little Kylan could only slightly loosen the central star. But looking at the Milky Way, the meteorites in it were sparse, messy, and broken. Only 10% of the original number remained. The other 90% were all swallowed into the little Kylan's stomach. Only the central star remained unmoved. The little Chilan flew into a rage out of humiliation. It leaped onto the star, and its 4 little hooves angrily stepped on the star, venting the resentment of its failure. But at this moment, the central star suddenly trembled. The little Chilan, who was standing on it, stared blankly at the ground. Its big purple eyes didn't blink at all. It was extremely puzzled. After a series of tremors, a crack appeared in the center of the central star. When this crack appeared, the wisest Milky Way array suddenly stopped operating. Bai Yijian's eyes shone brightly. It's a flaw. We have to pass through the Milky Way array and enter the final place of the legacy of materials. As he spoke, the little Chilan's eyes shone brightly as it entered the crack. Chase after it. Bai Yijian's face was filled with excitement as he led Bai Zhe into the crack. Bai Qi was next, followed by Su Yu and Xia Jingyu. All of them entered the crack. Finally, Xing Xuelian, who had been silent all this while, revealed a meaningful smile as she chased after the little Chilan. After passing through the crack, Su Yu's eyes suddenly lit up. Inside the star, there was actually a space of its own. There was a great bone palace that was 10,000 feet wide. The palace was made entirely out of the bones of demonic beasts of all creations, and it shone with a gentle jade light. In the center of the palace there were 2 gigantic beast heads. Each of them was a few hundred feet wide. Even though they had been dead for so long, they were still emitting an extremely powerful and ferocious aura. However, what they were paying attention to was the round pearl that was held in each of the beast heads' mouth. One was a brilliant silvery white, while the other was a dull yellow. The 2 beast heads were holding the pearls in their mouths, looking at each other from afar. Vaguely, the 2 pearls seemed to be facing each other from afar. Shangguan Qing'er's heart skipped a beat, and she cried out in shock, "The underworld pearl of the ghost realm!" Bai Yijian's pupils shrank, but his gaze was firmly fixed on the other silver pearl. His eyes were filled with excitement. He seemed to know about the existence of this item, so he was not overly surprised. However, Su Yu knew about this item. His eyes were also filled with excitement. If his guess was correct, this item was the thunder material that would be used to forge the first stage of the Desolate Sea Lost Pearl. According to legend, it was a tear that fell from the heavens and the earth, and it possessed an unparalleled thunder attribute. It was one of the best materials for crafting fairy artifacts in the Jiuzhou continent, especially a thunder fairy artifact. For a fairy artifact like the 5-elemental strong thunder seal, it was the main material for entering the second stage of crafting. If it was integrated into the 5-elemental strong thunder seal, it would most likely become a semi-manufactured fairy artifact. Su Yu was completely tempted. However, Su Yu's gaze suddenly caught sight of a white skeleton lying in front of the beast head of the Desolate Sea Lost Pearl. The white skeleton had long been eroded by the wind, but there was still a weak lightning energy seeping out of it. Su Yu could feel a familiar aura coming from the corpse. Thunder Emperor! Su Yu's heart sank. At the Thunder Emperor Mountain, Su Yu had obtained the 5-elemental strong thunder seal that the Thunder Emperor had left behind in a secret chamber. However, the remains of the Thunder Emperor were not within it. At that time, he had been suspicious. He had not expected the remains of the Thunder Emperor to be in the final place of legacy. How did he die? The Thunder Emperor was a strong divine master at the time. To be able to avoid the eyes and ears of the guards and enter the place of legacy without anyone noticing showed how powerful he was. It was not normal for him to die here. Looking at the two ferocious beast heads, Su Yu suddenly had a very bad feeling. Jingyu, let's retreat quickly. Su Yu grabbed onto Xia Jingyu and turned to escape without any hesitation. Even an almighty divine master had died here without a sound. The Great Bone Palace was definitely extremely dangerous. Su Yu's strange behavior attracted everyone's attention. They then looked at the skeleton that Su Yu had discovered. The remains of an almighty divine master? Shangguan Qing'er recognized it immediately, her heart thumping. Of course, she did not think that it was an accident that an almighty divine master had died here. She rolled her eyes and hesitated for a moment before decisively giving up. She quickly retreated, leaving this dangerous place in front of her. The movements of the three of them had caused a chain reaction. The Ghost King, Bai Qi, stared at the underworld pearl, his eyes filled with greed and excitement. However, after noticing the almighty divine master's corpse, he also decisively chose to retreat. Only Bai Yijian and his son did not move. Bai Yijian's mouth was filled with mockery. Isn't it too late to escape now? Bai Yijian laughed coldly. As he said this, the crack that they had entered from closed with a bang. Su Yu had almost been caught. His expression sank. Without another word, he took out his small golden sword and slashed at the wall in front of him. The small golden sword easily slashed 3 inches into the wall, as if it was cutting through mud. But immediately after, the small golden sword seemed to have struck something extremely hard. It let out a dull metallic sound and could no longer slash down. Su Yu shook his wrist, causing the small golden sword to vibrate. The surrounding soil was shaken off, revealing the object within. It was the bone of an all-creation's demonic beast. The exit had been sealed. The rest of the people also realized the severity of the situation and began to attack the surrounding walls. As the soil fell, the despairing all-creation's demonic beast bone was revealed. The entire interior of the space was a sealed all-creation's demonic beast bone. Even an almighty divine master might not be able to break free if he was trapped, let alone them. The remains of the Thunder Emperor were proof enough. Bai Yijian, is this your plot? Shangguan Qing'er squinted her eyes, her gaze filled with coldness. In fact, she had also sensed that this place was not as simple as the legacy of materials. She had not expected that in a moment of impatience, she had chased after the real spirit and fallen into a trap. Hee. Bai Jian let out a cold laugh, not bothering to hide it. You came here on your own accord. I did not force you. What are you trying to do? What is the point of trapping us? The vital energy in Shangguan Qing'er's body surged, ready to strike at any moment. Bai Jian's cold laugh became even deeper. Who said I wanted to trap you? What I want is your lives. Only by using the blood of geniuses like you can we activate this star, break open the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, and enter the vast Jiuzhou continent. We, the descendants of the Guardians, have waited for this day for too long. Shangguan Qing'er's expression turned cold. Wishful thinking. Even all creation's old monsters cannot break open the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. What right do you have to break open this place and leave? Bai Jian laughed coldly. Tianjizi left behind many treasures. One of them could kill even all creation's old monsters, let alone break open this place. What? Even all creation's old monsters could be killed? What treasures did Tianjizi leave behind? Everyone's expressions turned serious. Shangguan Qing'er said coldly, So, do you think you and your son can kill all of us? Bai Jian let out a cold laugh. There is no need for me and my son. My son alone is enough. Let Baizhe alone kill all of them? It sounded like a joke, but no one could laugh. Baijia's lips curled into a cold smile. What a pity. I had wanted to come in here alone with all of you and kill all of you. I did not expect the situation to change, and my father to come in here as well. That's good too. I can also imitate my father when he killed the Thunder Emperor and kill all of you fairies and half-fairies. Baijia's aura suddenly turned cold, and his murderous intent was thick. His tone was unusually arrogant. From his words, Su Yu learned a shocking piece of information. Chapter 554. If he hadn't heard it with his own ears, he would have found it hard to believe. Shangguan Qing'er's expression suddenly turned grave. What kind of mysteries were hidden in this place that could even kill almighty divine masters? His heart became extremely uneasy, and he had a very bad feeling. What exactly do you want to do? What benefits do you get from killing us? Shangguan Qing'er did not notice that her tone had gradually weakened. Bai Jian stood with his arms crossed, smiling coldly without saying a word. Baizhe, on the other hand, was in high spirits. Seeing that even fairy realm experts like Shangguan Qing'er were fearful, he felt extremely carefree. He looked up to the sky and laughed. Didn't I already say that I will use your blood to activate the treasure in this place and break open the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion? There was no doubt that he was arrogant. Su Yu's eyes flickered with a shrewd light. As a golden light flickered in his sleeves, the three small golden swords disappeared into thin air. Looking at Shangguan Qing'er again, although she looked extremely fearful and seemed to be asking seriously, in actual fact, she had taken out a jade pendant from her sleeves and was about to crush it. Xia Jingyu also secretly formed a seal with her hand, ready to strike at any time. Bai Jian looked around and furrowed his brows. Zhe, take action immediately. We don't want any undue delays. Baijia's arrogance disappeared when he heard the indifferent reprimand, and his face turned solemn. He took out an incomparably black flute from his bosom. It was about a foot long, and its entire body flickered with a hazy halo of light. It was like black jade, glossy and luxurious. There were 9 orifices on the black jade flute, one more than an ordinary flute. It looked very strange. The strangest thing was that there was a gray bird carved on the flute. The bird was vivid and lifelike, as if it was about to fly out from the flute. Especially that pair of emerald green eyes, which seemed to be alive. No matter which angle he looked at it from, it seemed to be looking at him. It was exceptionally strange. Middle-grade spirit weapon. Shangguan Qing'er's expression turned serious. However, what she was serious about was not the black jade flute itself, but the significance of its appearance in this place. The 3 vital energy crystals in Baija's body revolved, and all the vital energy in his body condensed into a ball of qi, which he blew into D from his mouth. As the Zhen qi entered the flute, the black jade flute glowed brightly. A deep black halo flowed in all directions like water. At the same time, a cold and mournful sound of a flute suddenly came from the black jade flute. Suyu had only heard one note, but he already felt his whole body turn cold. What shocked him was that his soul, which was as strong as the fairy realm, actually showed signs of trembling. Most importantly, he realized that his life force was flowing away as the musical note passed through his body. All of a sudden, Suyu felt a sense of weakness. Xia Jingyu was also shocked. Such a strong death aura, and the musical notes are so terrifying. Suyu's heart gradually sank and he said in a deep voice, "I'm afraid it has yet to reveal its true, frightening power." Creak. Suddenly, in the silence of the great hall of bones, where only the sound of the flute was left, a clear creaking sound could be heard. It sounded like something huge was moving and rubbing against the ground. Creak, creak. Following that, several sounds of friction could be heard. At this extremely tense moment, this strange sound caused one's hair to stand on end. Creak. A series of creaking sounds rang out, and the crowd finally found the source of the sound. When they looked closely, they saw that it was the 1,000-zhang beast head with the underworld pearl in its mouth. Within the empty eye sockets of the beast head, 2 emerald flames were burning, and whiffs of chilly wind were slowly blowing out from within. The chilly wind was so cold that it sent chills down one's spine, making one shudder. The beast head gradually emitted a strong aura, and whiffs of ferocious energy slowly seeped out from within the bones. In the crowd's perception, a huge, ferocious creature was awakening from its slumber. The beast head is reviving. Shangguan Qing'er stared coldly at the beast head and said in a low voice, "It's the underworld pearl in its mouth. This pearl contains strong Yin energy, and is very suitable for the survival of ghosts. The remnant soul of the all-creations beast is resting in the underworld pearl. Now it is being controlled by the black jade flute." Hearing that, Su Yu and the others' hearts thumped. The remnant soul of the all-creations demonic beast. No wonder Baizhi was so confident, and no wonder the Thunder Emperor had been buried here. Even though it was only a remnant soul, it still had a trace of the remaining power of an all-creations old monster. Moreover, even a divine master expert would find that the remnant power was a heavenly might that they couldn't resist. As the aura emitted by the beast bone grew more and more terrifying, everyone felt a sense of despair. "Let's attack together. Don't give him any more time to control it." Shangguan Qing'er gritted her teeth. Feeling the threat of death, she no longer held back and attacked. Everyone's hearts went cold. How could they still hesitate? Once Baizhi completely awakened the all-creation ferocious beast, what awaited them would undoubtedly be death. Under the level of all creations, they could decide their life and death with a single thought. Bai Yijian laughed coldly. It's too late." Whoosh, a white shadow flashed, and Bai Yijian stood in front of Baizhi. He held the long sword in his hand and turned it into a sky-piercing sword qi that swept across the entire area. A crescent-shaped snow-white sword qi with a radius of 100 feet. Within 100 feet, the space shattered inch by inch, like broken glass, fragmented and fragmented. The crowd, who was about to charge over, hurriedly retreated. This sword was completely the attack of the fairy realm. Even the space was shattered. Who could block it? Even Shangguan Qing'er's expression changed. She shook her sleeves and threw out a space talisman. The talisman exploded, releasing a ball of yellow light that condensed into a yellow tortoise. When the sword qi landed on it, the tortoise's body shook and blocked the sword qi. However, cracks appeared on its body, and it was then turned into dust by the remnant sword qi. One person and one sword, forcing the crowd to retreat. "I will block him." You guys attack together and kill Baizha. A determined look appeared in Shangguanqing'er's eyes. She shook her sleeves once again, and a golden puppet appeared. This puppet was similar to the one she had used to cross the stone statue forest. The only difference was that when this puppet appeared, it caused the entire space to tremble. Bai Yijian's cold expression suddenly froze, and he said in a low voice, "A puppet that contains an attack from a divine master. The person behind your all-creation old monster has indeed prepared a protective treasure for you." Hearing this, everyone's hearts relaxed. Luckily, they had a strong fairy realm martial artist, who was also an all-creation old monster's unofficial disciple. "Since you are seeking your own death, don't blame me for being ruthless." Shangguanqing'er snorted coldly. She clenched her palms together, and the golden puppet grew in size. In the blink of an eye, it had turned into a 10-zhang tall golden giant. It had the appearance of a woman. She was wearing a black robe, and her face was as cold as ice. Her phoenix eyes were filled with stars, as if they contained the entire starry sky. A majestic aura emanated from the golden puppet, causing the air in the great hall of white bones to solidify. It was obviously a puppet, but in their senses, it was as if an almighty divine master had personally descended. Bai Yijian's pupils shrank, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He took the initiative to attack first. With a sweep of his sword, a 10-zhang arc swept out in all directions. The space shattered inch by inch, and the cracks spread like a spider web. However, when the shattered space reached the 10-zhang tall statue, it bounced back. The statue's entire body was filled with a golden light, and it was not affected in the slightest. On the contrary, the scattered sword qi caused Bai Yijian to have no choice but to retreat. His eyes were filled with shock. "It's over." Shangguanqing'er's eyes turned cold. The golden puppet raised its arm, and a blood-colored crescent moon gradually appeared in its palm. The moment the blood-colored crescent moon was formed, it gave Bai Yijian the feeling that his heart was about to jump out of his chest. The soul in his body felt as if it was being cut open by a sharp blade. His instincts told him that it was a secret technique that could directly harm one's soul. Quick!" Bai Yijian was anxious, and he shouted anxiously. At the same time, he took out the long sword in his hand and threw it into the air. Suddenly, the long sword split into 6, and 6 clones appeared at the same time. Shangguanqing'er snorted coldly, and the blood-colored crescent moon disappeared into thin air. Bang! Suddenly, the 6 swords exploded at the same time. A small crescent moon shot out from the 6 swords at the same time, causing the 6 swords to explode from the inside out. Then, the 6 small crescent moons combined into one, becoming the original crescent moon. A spiritual weapon was destroyed just like that. With his life weapon destroyed, Bai Yijian was affected. His heart was damaged, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Seeing that the crescent moon had disappeared once again, Bai Yijian was shocked. Without hesitation, he hit the top of his head with his palm and groaned in pain. "Are you the only one who has a divine master-level treasure?" Ding! With a crisp sound, a cyan ruler flew out from the top of his head. The ruler's entire body was overflowing with spiritual light, and unknown Sanskrit words were carved on it. After vital energy was infused into it, layers of space power appeared. Clang! Suddenly, the green ruler flashed in space and disappeared. Then, a sound of something hitting Bai Yijian's chest could be heard. The blood-colored crescent moon had arrived in front of his chest without anyone noticing. At the critical moment, the cyan ruler appeared in front of his chest and blocked the attack. Shangguanqing'er was shocked. He could even block an attack from a divine master? What kind of treasure was this? The 8-directional flute and the 6-directional ruler are the inherited divine weapons of the Guardians. Unless the divine master himself arrives, what can you do to me? This ruler and the other flute were both middle-grade spiritual weapons, and their power was not to be underestimated. Shangguanqing'er's face darkened as she weaved a seal with her hands. The blood-colored crescent moon flickered and disappeared again. This time, it appeared on Bai Yijian's back. However, the six-directional ruler was very special. It seemed to have the ability to predict the direction of the attack and teleported to block the crescent moon. Shangguan Qing'er's face turned pale again. Her 10 fingers spun and quickly weaved a seal. The crescent moon teleported quickly, but the six-directional ruler seemed to be able to predict the future and appeared in front of the crescent moon. The six-directional ruler is a weapon that Tianjizi used when he was a divine master. After he broke through to the all-creations level, he gave it to his disciple. It contains his divine decree. How can you break through its defense? The divine decree of the path? No wonder it had the ability to predict the future. If that was the case, it would be troublesome. In the next 20 to 30 moves, only the blood-colored crescent moon could be seen colliding with the green light around Bai Yijian. The red and green colors reflected each other, and Bai Yijian was not injured at all. Just as Shangguan Qing'er was about to give up on attacking and take Baizhi's life, Bai Yijian flew over and chased after her. She was completely entangled and could not deal with Bai Yijian for the time being. At that moment, the aura of the beast head had already reached the later stage of the fairy realm and was climbing towards the divine master realm. Once it reached the divine master realm, only death awaited them. It's all up to you. Kill Baizhi immediately and end the battle quickly, Shangguan Qing'er shouted in a low voice. Su Yu's eyes flashed coldly. He was already prepared for this. With a thought, a small golden sword appeared from the void around Baizhi and pierced towards his heart. Chapter 555. Same old trick. Baizhi seemed to have been prepared for this. He stuck a snow-white talisman on his body. A layer of light flowed out and covered the surface of his body. All of a sudden, the invincible small golden sword pierced the surface of his body and bounced back like a ripple. A talisman that contains the defense of the fairy realm? Xia Jingyu's expression changed slightly. Su Yu sighed. Although the small golden sword had the ability to teleport, if it was exposed prematurely, its effect would undoubtedly be greatly reduced. If he had 6 other small swords to form the sword formation of 9 swords, there would not have been so much trouble. He would have been killed long ago. It was a pity that the 2 seeds of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo that Lu Chuyi had given him were still alive. How difficult would it be to gather enough heavenly orchid silver bamboo to craft the small golden swords? Moreover, even if he managed to gather all 9 swords, he would still have to find the original version of the 9 yin-yang formation, the Cosmos 9 Suns sword formation. Now that Bai Luo was dead, there was no way of knowing the origin of the 9 steel needles, let alone the whereabouts of the Cosmos 9 Suns sword formation. Su Yu's eyes were filled with a cold light. Feeling the murderous aura of the beast head getting stronger, Su Yu's murderous intent intensified. Both of you, attack together. Su Yu bellowed at the Ghost King and Xing Xuelian. Perhaps they were hesitant or worried, but they did not attack. Hearing this, Xing Xuelian stood her ground and did not move. Her eyes shone with a mysterious light. She had decided to stand aside and watch. The Ghost King did not hesitate. He leaped to the other side of Baizhi, forming a pincer attack with Su Yu. Su Yu looked at Xing Xuelian in surprise, then turned his attention to dealing with Baizhi. "Yin Yu, when we were on the stairs, I did not use my trump card for the sake of our tribe's grand plan. Now I want to see what you can do to me with just 3 small swords." Baizhi had been defeated by Su Yu once, and he still regarded it as a great humiliation. Now, he was trying to find an excuse for himself. "Is that so? But I think you are still very weak," Su Yu said indifferently. The black jade ring on his finger shone with a dim light, and a fiery red umbrella appeared in his palm. This object was the Purple Sun incredible umbrella that Lu Chuyi had refined again. It had been infused with her divine fire, the red lotus fury flame. This flame was ranked 1000 on the divine flame list, and its ranking was quite low. However, according to Lu Chui, it was a terrifying flame that could even melt a later stage fairy. Although the newly refined Purple Sun Profound Umbrella did not contain the raging red lotus flame, the flame it released was not something the Purple Sun flame could compare to. The Purple Sun Profound Umbrella should be renamed to the Red Lotus Profound Umbrella. Semi-manufactured spiritual weapon? The Ghost King smiled. You've gained a lot after a month. Suyu looked at him meaningfully, then calmly said, Let's get rid of Baizha first. The Ghost King took another look at the Red Lotus Mystic Umbrella and nodded his head. His powerful body directly crossed over and attacked Baizha. Baizha was pushed back by the power of his fists, which seemed to be able to topple mountains and overturn seas. However, it didn't even cause any damage, because most of the power was reflected by the water barrier. Baizha sneered, It's useless, just wait for your death. However, at that moment, his brows suddenly twitched, and he felt a sense of danger. When he looked back, he saw that Suyu was standing 100 feet away from him, and the fiery red umbrella had been opened. Chapter 556. Whoosh! Suddenly, the red umbrella radiated a red flame that was hundreds of feet long. The flame was like a wave, rolling forward like a blooming red lotus, extremely beautiful and breathtaking. However, the high temperature released by the red lotus was terrifying. The temperature of the entire Great Bone Palace doubled. Everyone felt as if they had fallen into a furnace, and they hurriedly used their vital energy to protect their bodies. In the Great Bone Palace, apart from the incomparably hard inner walls of the bones, the two beast heads, and the people who had protected their bodies with vital energy, everything else had been burned into nothingness. Baizha's cold smile froze, and his eyes were filled with fear. His heart was filled with a strong sense of unease. Looking at Suyu's calm expression, his hair stood on end. That expression was one of absolute confidence that he could kill him. Feeling the danger of the place, Bai Yijian's eyebrows twitched. He had a premonition that things were not going well. This Inu was scarier than he had imagined. Not only did he have 3 semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts, but he also had a semi-manufactured Red Lotus incredible umbrella. Zhe used the blood gourd. However, you can only drink 10 drops at most. Bai Yijian was unusually decisive. Baizha's eyes were filled with excitement as he licked his lips. Hee, I haven't been refining it for long, so I'll start with you. After saying this, Baizha took out a blood-red gourd. The gourd had a ferocious ghost face carved on it. The gourd emitted a pungent smell of blood. The Ghost King's expression changed. Could this be the ghost gourd? Looking deeply at Baizha, the Ghost King laughed mockingly. Your hearts are really cruel. After using the ghost gourd, it can temporarily increase one's strength. The principle is to seal the flesh and soul of a strong martial artist in the gourd and brew it into blood wine. After drinking it, one can temporarily obtain the cultivation and strength of the sealed martial artist. However, such an evil technique requires people of the same bloodline. Looking at your gourd, I'm afraid you have killed at least 100 people. If I remember correctly, there are only 100 people in this generation of the Guardian bloodline. Could it be that you and your father have killed all of your people? His words sent chills down one's spine. Speaking of which, after Suyu had entered the mountain, apart from the half-fairy guard that he had met in the underground lava of the legacy of craftsmanship, the rest of the guards had disappeared into thin air. Their stronghold was empty. More importantly, Suyu had once sensed a bloody aura from Baizha's body. It was the aura of someone who had just killed someone. Based on this deduction, the bloodline of the guardians that had disappeared were probably all stored in this bloody gourd. Suyu's heart turned cold. He had slaughtered his own clan members and refined them all into blood wine. What kind of evil heart was this? Most of the vicious and evil people might not have the heart to do it. However, the father and son duo did not have any expression on their faces. It really made people feel a chill down their spines. Baizha's expression stiffened as he glared at the Ghost King. His eyes flashed with malice. He had not expected that Bai Qi would be able to see through their secret. Bai Yijian's expression was also very ugly. You know too much. His words were undoubtedly admitting that the so-called transfer of the guardians was actually just an excuse. They had already become a gourd of blood wine. The father and son had repeatedly said that breaking open the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion was the long-cherished wish of many of their people. Chapter 557. Baizhi was filled with murderous intent. It doesn't matter. You are all going to die anyway. So what if you know? That's right, they are all in this gourd. If they don't sacrifice themselves, how are they going to break the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion? Now, all that's left is the blood essence of you geniuses with the strongest bloodlines. Baizhi shouted in a low voice. He quickly but carefully drank a mouthful of it. There were only about 10 drops of it. He didn't drink more than 1 drop. As for the reason, the cultivation and power of the whole clan was contained in the blood wine, so one could only imagine how terrifying the energy contained in the gourd was. Not to mention a mouthful, even a drop of it was not something that anyone below the half-fairy level could bear. 10 drops was Baizhi's limit. He didn't dare drink more than 1 drop. Su Yu's eyes turned cold as he flipped his wrist. The red lotus incredible umbrella rotated in the air. The red flames in the sky seemed to have received a command and started to swirl back crazily, turning into a tornado that engulfed Baizhi. The angry red lotus flames bloomed, and the water barrier around Baizhi's body shattered with a cracking sound. The boundless flames engulfed Baizhi in an instant. However, within the red flames, his blurry figure didn't show any signs of melting. Instead, it became clearer and clearer. An aura that was gradually becoming stronger rose from within the flames. The angry red lotus flames that filled the sky were split in half by a powerful force, revealing the figure within. Baizhi's clothes were destroyed and his hair was gone. However, his body was as shiny as new, like steel. There were no signs of being burned. Su Yu was secretly surprised. Even an ordinary early-stage fairy would be burned to death, yet Baizhi was unharmed. 10 drops of blood essence had raised his cultivation to a very high level. At the very least, he was at the level of a peak early-stage fairy. Too weak. Baizhi laughed disdainfully as he swept his right leg around. In an instant, a violent gust of wind swept out in all directions, and the red lotus fury was swept away. Su Yu tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and retreated with Xia Jingyu. There was still a bit of flame that splashed onto his clothes, causing his sleeves to be slightly burned. However, before Su Yu could react, he heard a mocking voice. Your reaction is too slow. With a blur, Baizhi appeared next to Su Yu as if he had teleported. His palm was engulfed in terrifying vital energy, and he aimed it at the top of Su Yu's head. It seemed like he was going to kill Su Yu on the spot. Su Yu's expression was calm. As a golden light flashed in his sleeves, 3 small golden swords appeared beside Su Yu out of thin air and pierced towards Baizhi's palm. Baizhi laughed coldly. It's useless. True qi condensed in his palms, and he grabbed the 3 small golden swords in his hands at lightning speed. Moreover, he immediately enveloped Su Yu with his majestic vital energy, cutting off his connection with Su Yu. Hence, it would be impossible for them to teleport back to Su Yu's hand. His weapon had been stolen. Su Yu was slightly surprised, but he took the opportunity to put some distance between them. Baizhi held the 3 small golden swords in his hands and chuckled. These are good things, I will accept them. Don't hate me. Blame yourself for being too weak. Su Yu's eyes glowed with a thoughtful expression. In terms of abilities and cultivation level, Xinggu seemed to be slightly weaker than him, even though they were both at the early stage of the fairy realm. This was partly because Xinggu had yet to display the true fighting power of the fairy realm, but it was also partly because of the gap in their cultivation levels. Xingji's cultivation was only at the early stage of the fairy realm, while Baizhi was at the peak of the early stage. Hence, there was a huge gap between the two of them. Chapter 558. In terms of true power, Baizhou was no match for Suyu. Baizhou laughed mockingly. So what? The strong are the strong, the weak are the weak. If you also have such a treasure, I won't say anything. Unexpectedly, Suyu nodded earnestly. Fine, since you said so, I will surely fulfill your wish. Baizhou's mocking expression gradually disappeared, and he asked skeptically, You still have a treasure to protect yourself? As a disciple of the Gui Yuan sect, how many benefits did your sect give you? Even if you're specially sent here, the things you've given me are too exaggerated. Suyu did not take out any magical treasures. Instead, he calmly clenched his fists and looked at Baizhou. You have misunderstood me. I do not need to use other magical treasures to deal with you. As he clenched his fist, the air around him seemed to be suppressed by something. The air in the sealed space gathered in Suyu's palm crazily, causing the rest of the space to become a vacuum zone where one could not breathe. Bai Yijian and Shangguan Qing'er, who were fighting, were both shocked. Both of them revealed shocked expressions at the same time. Legendary level techniques? Moreover, it has a certain level of maturity. The two of them were very surprised, especially Shangguan Qing'er. As an all creation's old monsters registered disciple, she was no stranger to legendary level technique. In fact, she had even been given a fragmented page. It was so profound that ordinary people couldn't imagine it. Under the guidance of her master, she had only just touched the edge of the rudiments. If she wanted to take another step forward, she would need at least 3 years of hard work. However, Suyu, an unknown disciple, had actually cultivated it to the upper class level. Even the old fairy realm experts, who had stepped into the fairy realm many years ago, did not have the confidence to cultivate it to the upper class. How old was Suyu? How high was his cultivation base? His actions gave Shangguan Qing'er an indescribable shock. She swore that there were not more than 10 people like Suyu who had cultivated a legendary level cultivation technique to the upper class at such a young age. And those 10 were all future divine masters of their sex. Bai Yijian was also surprised. He had been trying to comprehend legendary level cultivation techniques for many years, but he had only managed to comprehend them to the lower city realm. How did Suyu manage to achieve such a level? At the same time, a sense of alarm rose in his heart and his expression changed. Baizhou was in danger. It was impossible to predict the might of a legendary cultivation technique that had reached the large success stage. After all, different cultivation techniques had different levels of power. The only thing he could be sure of was that it wasn't something his son could withstand. Sure, run! Bai Yijian roared angrily. He swept Shangguan Qing'er away with his sword and charged toward Suyu. His heart thumped wildly. Unexpected, too unexpected. Suyu had actually hidden his abilities so well. Not to mention his son, even if he were to face Suyu himself, it was highly likely that he would be killed by the legendary level cultivation technique. In terms of battle prowess, he was even more terrifying than Shangguan Qing'er, and he actually left such a terrifying enemy to his son to deal with. As he chased after them angrily, Shangguan Qing'er was overjoyed. "Haha, old thief Bai, you want to leave? If you want to kill us, then we'll let you see how your son is killed." He shook his sleeves, and a silver chain shot out from his sleeves again, wrapping around Bai Yijian. Once again, Shangguan Qing'er switched places with Bai Yijian and stood in front of Suyu. She then looked at the furious Bai Yijian with a cold smile. "Here, me. Get lost." Bai Yijian's eyes were bloodshot, and his expression was one of extreme anger. His face was contorted, and he looked like an angry lion. Chapter 559. Shangguan Qing'er laughed coldly, then turned to Suyu and said, "Let's end this quickly and kill that little thief." Suyu nodded slightly. All the air in the space had been gathered in his palm, and the rest of the space had become a vacuum. Even sound could not be transmitted. All the air was compressed in Suyu's palm. Moreover, it was still being compressed, from the size of a palm to the size of a fist, and from the size of a fist to the size of an eyeball. Visible to the naked eye, the compressed air mass gradually turned from hazy cyan to dark cyan, and then from dark cyan to dark gray. Finally, when all the air was compressed to the size of a little finger, it became pitch black. Within that pitch black color, there were flashes of lightning. This was the lightning produced by the friction between the compressed air. The destructive power contained within the small ball was unprecedented. The whole space could feel that Suyu was holding something that made one's hair stand on end. Baijia's face stiffened. His whole body felt cold as he stared at the black ball, his eyelids twitching wildly. Bai Yijian roared angrily. Unfortunately, in the vacuum, he could not make a sound. He could only watch as his son faced the compressed air alone, which could destroy even him. Suyu's palm trembled slightly, and streaks of blood flowed from the gaps between his fingers. The intensely compressed air was a huge burden to his palm. The blood in his body was forcefully suppressed, and it flowed out of his pores. However, his eyes were filled with excitement. Buddhist Saints 8 Characters Upper Success Volume, Fight. Its power was even more terrifying than he had imagined. Even a middle-stage fairy would be wary of it. Are you ready? Suyu raised his head and looked at Baizhi. With a smile, he threw out the compressed air that was the size of an eyeball. Creak! The black ball rolled past, but it was like a long knife, drawing a long black line in the space. It was a sign that the space was about to shatter. Wherever it passed, the space was completely shattered. Baizhi was terrified. He no longer had the arrogance that Suyu had when he was weak. With fear in his heart, he ran away. However, to his despair, the small black ball had a very strong consciousness. It had locked onto him and was madly chasing after him. In the blink of an eye, the small black ball had caught up to him. At this moment, layers of thunder and lightning burst out from the inside of the black ball. A terrifying aura of destruction surged out from the inside of the black ball. The destructive force shattered a large area of space, including Baizhi, into pieces. Bai Yijian's pupils dilated, and he was in a daze. His son was dead. Shangguan Qing'er revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. She looked at the beast's head, whose aura was gradually weakening, and heaved a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, he had managed to make it in time at the last moment. That beast head had almost recovered its divine master cultivation, and the consciousness of its remnant soul was about to awaken. Once that happened, they would all die here. Everything was a close shave. However, Suyu didn't look happy at all. Instead, his face was gloomy. Why are you doing this? It was not hard to hear the anger in his deep voice. The unexpected sound caused Shangguan Qing'er to be startled. She looked at the shattered space once again, and a scene that caused her pupils to shrink appeared in front of her. In the shattered space, a 3 zhang tall giant figure stood majestically. The figure's entire body was pitch black, and it had a green face and fangs. Its 2 blood-red eyes were like lanterns, and it looked extremely horrifying. Chapter 560. The wings were flapping rapidly, creating a piercingly cold air current that protected the space around them and Baizhi in the center. This is an evil spirit? Shangguan Qing'er sucked in a breath of cold air, her eyes filled with fear. Impossible! How could there be such a strong ghost in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion? Didn't they retreat to the world of ghosts and souls 100 years ago? Suyu's eyes turned cold, his killing intent rising. Bai Qi, give me a reason not to kill you. The person who had attacked was none other than the Ghost King, Bai Qi. Suyu could never have imagined that the one who saved Baizhi in the end and caused them to fall back into the shadow of death was the Ghost King. He was also on the must-kill list. A complicated expression appeared on Bai Qi's face as he coldly harumphed. Kill him? You have yet to ask this king's opinion on this. As soon as it finished speaking, it spread its wings and flew away from the danger zone with Baizhi. Baijia's face was pale and his legs were weak. He looked at Su Yu with a tinge of fear in his eyes, but more than that, it was the fear of getting rid of Su Yu. Therefore, he immediately continued to inject his true qi into the 8-directional bamboo flute. With a buzzing sound, the beast's aura, which was gradually weakening, rose once again, and with an extremely fast speed, it surpassed the barrier of the fairy realm. Instantly, the entire great hall of bones began to tremble. From the outside, one would notice that the entire 5 mountains were trembling, as if heaven and earth were collapsing. Above the 5 mountains, dark clouds gathered and thunder rumbled. Not long after, heavy rain poured down. The rare phenomenon caused the geniuses in front of the stone statue forest to feel their hearts racing. On a certain mountain in the 5 peaks, a silver figure flashed like a ghost. The great bone hall was quickly filled with a terrifying pressure. The aura of a divine master was like a giant mountain pressing down on them. It made them feel despair, and they couldn't even muster the will to resist. Roar! A low and powerful roar came out from the beast's mouth. Everyone trembled when they heard this, and their bodies felt like they were about to collapse. Su Yu's heart sank. The Divine Master Realm was an absolute gap between them. They had failed in the end. Bai Yijian, whose face was filled with anger, suddenly laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, the heavens are helping me. Looking at Bai Yijian laughed. Thank you for your help. He had no qualms about the other party's identity as a ghost. Bai Qi waved his hands and said, There is no need to thank me. I only saved him because I hope that you will succeed in breaking into the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. I also want to take this opportunity to leave the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Speaking of which, his goal was the same as Xing Ji's, which was to enter the Jiuzhou continent through the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Well said. At the very most, we will release more of the ghost gourd's blood wine. That way, we will be able to stimulate the beast's head and break through the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Bai Yijian would naturally not offend the Ghost King at such a critical juncture. A smile appeared on Bai Qi's face. Since that is the case, I will leave the rest to you, clan leader Bai. When he finished speaking, he retreated to Baijia's side to protect him. Bai Yijian cupped his fists and thanked him. Thank you. Let me handle the rest myself. There are some people that I wish I could hack into 1,000 pieces. With an ominous glint in his eyes, he glared at Shangguan Qing'er. If not for Brother Bai Qi's help, my son would have died here. Don't you like to stop people? What else do you want to say now? The first person he wanted to kill was Shangguan Qing'er. Shangguan Qing'er's face turned green, and her expression was extremely ugly. Chapter 561. Bai Yijian's face was full of anger as he coldly turned around and shouted at Baizhi, Kill her! Baizhi nodded, and a similar look of hatred appeared in his eyes. When he was in danger, this woman had repeatedly blocked his father's rescue. She deserved to die 10,000 times. Baizhi raised the 8 Desolations flute and blew it with his true qi. A low and deep voice floated out with a murderous and cold aura. 2 green beams of light shot out from the eyes of the resurrected beast head that were burning with ghostly green flames. The beam of light shot straight at Shangguan Qing'er. Shangguan Qing'er's facial expression changed drastically, and she hurriedly took out the golden doll. The puppet released the aura of a divine master, protecting Shangguan Qing'er behind it. After a while, the expected collision between the light pillar and the stone statue did not occur. Shangguan Qing'er felt that something was off. She stuck her head out from behind the giant puppet, but the green light pillar had already disappeared. He seemed to have successfully avoided it. However, she discovered that Su Yu and Xia Jingyu were looking at her with an unsightly expression. They were both shocked, but they also felt pity for her. Tick-tock! Suddenly, a dripping sound came from beneath Shangguan Qing'er's feet. She looked down subconsciously, but she did not raise her head again. In his eyes, her body had disappeared without a trace. Only 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head with a layer of skin attached to the arms were left. The light beam ignored the puppet and turned Shangguan Qing'er's body into nothingness. His eyes gradually dimmed, then turned black, and he completely lost consciousness. A fairy realm expert had been killed so easily. Moreover, the indestructible Great Hall of White Bones was also cracked by the green beam of light. Baizhi was in high spirits, and the hatred in his eyes deepened. He looked at Su Yu and said coldly, "Yin Yu, it's your turn." Su Yu's heart sank and he said in a low voice, "Jingyu, retreat." Baizhi had come for him. There was no sign of panic on Xia Jingyu's beautiful face. Instead, she was as calm as ever. She did not retreat. Instead, she moved closer to Su Yu's side. She placed her arm against Su Yu's, and a calm smile blossomed on her face. "Only when the mountains are flat and the heavens and the earth are united will I dare to fight with you." In the face of death, she felt an inexplicable sense of relief. A beautiful and holy smile bloomed on her lips, but it also hid a hint of regret and sadness. Perhaps this is the other kind of ending that I want. She couldn't spend a lifetime with Su Yu. However, death had helped her achieve her goal. Dying together with Su Yu was perhaps the humblest and only arrangement that fate had given her. In life, they could not share a pillow, but in death, they might be able to sleep together. When the mountains have no edges and the heavens and the earth merge, only then will they dare to go against the monarch. Su Yu deeply felt the friendship in his words, and the more he felt this way, the heavier his heart became. How could he bear Xia Jingyu's love? You're still being lovey-dovey even in death. Fine, I'll fulfill your wish and send you down to be a ghost couple. Baizhi coldly snorted. Su Yu and Xia Jingyu's calmness did not give him the satisfaction of killing them. Baizhi raised the 8 desolation flute and imbued it with his zhenqi. However, right at this moment, a pink mist suddenly appeared above Baizhi's head without any warning. 2 pink and tender hooves emerged from the cloud and stepped on Baizhi's face without any hesitation. Ouch! Baizhi was caught off guard and was stepped on by a hoof. He cried out involuntarily. Just as he was about to curse angrily, he suddenly felt that his palm was empty. When he opened his eyes, he found that the 8 desolation flute had disappeared. 100 feet away, a cute pink Kylin was holding the 8 desolation flute in its mouth, and it was hopping around excitedly. It was the real spirit Kylin. Chapter 562. The sudden scene caused by Yijian's face to stiffen, and he immediately became furious. "Evil creature, how dare you ruin my plans? Brother Ghost, please lend me a hand and capture this little Qilin." Bai Qi had not expected such a thing to happen. After struggling for a while, he had no choice but to join forces with Bai Yijian to capture the small Kylin. This was a sealed space, so even if the little Qilin was proficient in escaping techniques, it wouldn't be able to escape from the White Bone Hall. Sooner or later, it would be caught by them. Seeing that the two of them were about to join hands to capture it, the little Qilin swept its tail and proudly raised its head, swaggering over to the beast head that had been activated. He also condensed a mass of true energy in his mouth and blew the 8-directional flute. The beast head's eyes flashed with green light and shot out 2 beams of light. Bai Yijian and the Ghost King's faces changed, and they hurriedly dodged the attack. Luckily, the little Kylin seemed to be unable to completely control the 8-directional flute as the green light pillar deviated from its angle and shot out from the top of its head. Bang! A human-sized hole was punched through the solid white bone hull, just enough for one person to escape through. The rustling sound scared the little Qilin into shrinking its neck. It timidly swallowed the 8 desolation flute into its stomach and prepared to escape. But before he escaped, he jumped into the beast's mouth and swallowed the underworld pearl. The underworld pearl contained the remnant soul of the beast's head. If it was swallowed, the beast's bone would become a dead object. Stop! Bai Yijian was both shocked and angry. This beast bone was the key to breaking into the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. The little Kylin snorted in disdain. It opened its mouth and held the underworld pearl in its mouth. Then, it raised its neck and swallowed it. Then, it immediately turned into a pink mist and disappeared. At that moment, Bai Yijian and the Ghost King had just arrived. While they were chasing after the small Kailan, Su Yu and Xia Jingyu quietly went to the top of the Great Bone Palace. Xia Jingyu had already escaped, leaving only Su Yu behind. Trying to run? Stay here. Bai Yijian was so anxious that his eyes turned red. With a loud roar, he chased after him in a flash. He wanted to pull Xia Jingyu down, but Su Yu pushed him away with his vital energy. Jingyu, run. I'll find a way to meet up with you. Su Yu was afraid that Xia Jingyu would do something stupid and jump down again. So, he took out a pearl and sealed the gap. Bai Yijian was a step too late and he was furious. The blood sacrifice ceremony was just about to succeed, but in the end, Su Yu appeared first, followed by the small Kailan. Everything was messed up. My clan's long-cherished wish has been completely destroyed by you and that little bastard. Don't even think about leaving. Bai Yijian was furious, and he roared as he attacked. Su Yu's gaze became ice-cold. Not only was he not flustered, but he was also filled with killing intent. Fine, I've tolerated you for a long time. Even without Jingyu around, I can still unleash my full potential. Bang! All of a sudden, the blue pearl that filled the gap appeared in front of Su Yu in a flash. Su Yu injected vital energy into the blue pearl for the first time. Previously, he had always used spiritual qi to control it, but this time, he infused it with true qi. The blue orb shone brighter than ever before. At the same time, he growled, "Brother Gui, let's attack together. There's something strange about this kid." Su Yu's legendary-level cultivation technique, Bai Yijian, was still fresh in his mind. How could he not be on guard? The Ghost King stood where he was, his face flickering with struggle, as if he was very unwilling, but under some kind of pressure. He gritted his teeth and rushed over. Chapter 563. Bai Yijian looked over and saw that Su Yu's palm was still bleeding profusely. It was obvious that Su Yu's injury was very serious. This was caused by him forcefully compressing the air. If he were to use it again, his arm would probably be crippled. Humph. So what if we let him use it? The three of us can't kill him? Bai Yijian secretly heaved a sigh of relief, but his face was filled with anger. The situation had turned into Su Yu facing two strong men of the fairy realm by himself. However, he was still unusually calm. Haha, whether you can kill me or not is another matter. However, I will take your precious son's life today. After saying this, Su Yu softly commanded, "Kill!" With this command, the three small golden swords that Baizha had retrieved suddenly shot out a wisp of vital energy from them, breaking through the restraints. In order to prevent the golden swords from being taken away, Su Yu had already prepared to inject a wisp of vital energy into them to deliver an unexpected blow. How could his weapon be so easily taken away? Bai Yijian's expression changed drastically, and his eyes widened in anger. No! Baizha's face was ashen as well. At such a close distance, there was no time to release a defensive barrier. Chi! With a dull thud, Baizha's heart was pierced through. Then, a golden light flashed on his neck. Another flying sword spun around and sliced his neck off. The last golden sword pierced through the head that had fallen to the ground. As such, Baizha was dead, and there was no way he could be saved. Ja, son. Bai Yijian let out a heart-wrenching roar. His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked like an angry, evil spirit. His face was even more ferocious than Bai Chi's. "I will tear you apart." Bai Yijian let out a low growl like a ferocious beast. Su Yu coldly said, "You have no qualms about killing others, but when your own son is killed, you become so angry? I don't care. I will tear you apart. I will tear you apart." Bai Yijian let out a deafening roar. Su Yu's palms suddenly flashed, and a thunder sword appeared without warning. It was covered with green thunderbolts, emitting a rather terrifying aura. In the underground lava, The fairy realm white-eyed fire glass doll had died at the hands of the Cosmos Thunder Sword. Although his vital energy was not enough to unleash such a strike, with the storage of a vital energy crystal, its power was still extraordinary. Be careful. Bai Qi could only warn Bai Yijian, who had lost his mind. However, even if Su Yu did not lose his mind, how could Bai Yijian avoid it? Even if San San had not lost his mind, how could he have avoided it? Imbuing vital energy into the Cosmos Thunder Sword, Su Yu slashed down from the sky. Rumble! It was as if a thunderbolt had struck. At the same time, a clear white light flashed and a 500 feet long sword chi sliced through the air. Bai Yijian was caught off guard and was hit by the sword chi. He screamed in pain as his chest was cut open, and his flesh and blood flew everywhere. His entire body was scorched black by the high temperature of the lightning. He was injured on the spot. However, the injured Bai Yijian immediately took out a pill from his pocket and threw it into his mouth. His flesh body recovered at a shocking speed and was back to normal in the blink of an eye. Apart from being a little dispirited, it was impossible to tell that he had just suffered a lightning strike. The effect of this pill was similar to the flesh regeneration elixir of the Zhenlong continent. The difference was that this pill took effect immediately, and was of a much higher grade than the flesh regeneration elixir. Su Yu was shocked, but immediately understood. The descendants of the Guardians had stolen a large amount of legacies, and the elixirs had probably all been plundered by them. With Tianjizi's abilities, it was not surprising that he had left behind such an elixir. This made things a little tricky. His opponent could not be seriously injured in a short period of time, let alone killed. However, they could not do anything to Su Yu for the time being. Chapter 564. After half a cup of tea's time, the three of them had fought for hundreds of rounds. Su Yu's vital energy and physical strength had been greatly depleted, and his body was slightly injured. However, Bai Yijian and Bai Qi were not at an advantage either, as both of them had suffered a blow from the Cosmos Thunder Sword. This was especially true for the Ghost King, as he was a ghost. Thus, the thunder had a suppressive effect on him, so the damage was even greater. After a round of fighting, they could not do anything to each other. "What can you do to me? I advise you to quickly find that real spirit Kylin. Otherwise, you will lose both your life and your wealth." "Don't blame me for not reminding you," Su Yu said coldly as he took a few steps back. Bai Yijian was shocked. His and the Ghost King's original goal was to find that damned little Kylin. He had thought that he could easily get rid of Su Yu, but instead, his son had been killed by Su Yu. Now they were in a situation where they would not rest until one of them was dead. Should he continue fighting Su Yu, or should he look for the little Kylin? Who knew if they would be careless during the fight, and the little Kylin would escape? The intelligence it displayed was quite high. Bai Yijian hesitated. Was it more important to avenge his son, or to leave the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion? Just as he was thinking, a calm and unruffled voice came from the gap. "Fight, why don't you fight?" Su Yu froze. This voice, after that, his expression was completely solemn. He looked at the Ghost King, who was equally serious. His eyes were filled with unconcealable fear. Bai Yijian was the only one who did not know where he had come from. He coldly asked, "Who are you? Why are you hiding there? What are you up to?" "Hiding?" "You're just too weak to sense my existence." A streak of silver light slowly fell from the gap. A silvery figure, which was shining with a silver light, floated down. Bai Yijian sensed it and was shocked. He could not sense this person's aura. There were two possibilities for this situation. The first was that this person's cultivation was far above his, so he could not sense its aura. The second was that this person was not human at all. After sensing it, he was certain of the second possibility. He was slightly relieved and said coldly, "You are just a non-human puppet. Do you think you can meddle in other people's business?" In the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, only Bai Yijian could display abilities that surpassed the fairy realm. The non-human puppet in front of him had never been mentioned by his ancestors, so it must be an outsider. In a situation where his opponent was unable to use their full strength, he was, of course, an almost invincible existence. The silver figure's light gradually faded, revealing a face that was no different from a real person's. His silver clothes fluttered without any wind. A faintly discernible evil smile hung on the corner of his mouth. Hee, it's true that I'm an inhuman puppet, and it's also true that I don't want to meddle in your business. Bai Yijian frowned. Then why are you here? Do you want to die? As a puppet, it's truly rare for you to be able to cultivate your own consciousness. If you don't want to be erased, then leave immediately. The abilities of the three of them could be measured by the fairy realm. In Bai Yijian's eyes, this puppet was courting death by barging in recklessly. Haha, why am I here? Why don't you ask the two of them? He was naturally the silver puppet that had chased them all the way from the 7th level of the divine pavilion. Su Yu and the Ghost King's hearts sank to the bottom at the same time. They had actually been trapped in such a sealed space by him. He wasn't any weaker than the beast head. In fact, he was even more terrifying, because he didn't need anyone to control him. He only had one goal, which was to devour all the living creatures he could devour in order to recover his cultivation. Bai Yijian was secretly shocked. His eyes narrowed as he asked, "Do you know him?" When he saw that Su Yu and the Ghost King had ugly expressions on their faces, Bai Yijian's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad premonition. He decisively chose to retreat and keep his distance. However, just as he was retreating, the silver puppet laughed evilly. "It seems like you have understood. If that's the case, you can go on your way." Creak. Countless blood-colored threads suddenly shot out from his pores and swept out like a tsunami. Bai Yijian's expression changed greatly. He hurriedly took out a talisman. After it exploded, the aura of a middle-stage fairy filled the air. From the talisman, a giant shield was formed. This shield could withstand an attack from a middle-stage fairy. It was a treasure that Bai Yijian was reluctant to use. However, before Bai Yijian could relax, the shield cracked open with a cracking sound. A sea of blood which filled the sky gushed forth and engulfed him. A horrible shriek could be heard coming from beneath the sea of blood. Then it stopped abruptly. The silver puppet happily enjoyed the feeling. He sighed. The tonic of the fairy realm is indeed extraordinary. Its silver light became even more dazzling. Its cultivation of the later stage fairy realm was showing signs of breaking through to the divine master level. As the sea of blood returned to its body, not a single trace of blood was left behind. Bai Yijian, a dignified fairy, had died without a trace. With an evil smile on its face, the silver puppet's gaze turned and landed on Su Yu. It then laughed coldly. "Little brat, in the end, you still did not manage to escape from my grasp." Up until now, he had only written the outline and outline in the morning. As such, he had not written much of the main text. Hence, the contents of these few chapters were very short. Chapter 565. Su Yu's heart sank. There could be no worse situation than this. "Hand it over. How dare you touch my things?" The silver puppet extended its hand and shot out 10 blood-red threads, aiming for Su Yu's life. It was so overbearing that it did not give Su Yu any chance to escape. Su Yu's eyes turned cold. He did not think he could get away with this. He had secretly controlled the blue pearl before the silver puppet had attacked. As the danger approached, a blue light flashed in front of him, and the blue pearl appeared in front of him. The threads of blood could not penetrate the blue pearl, and were immediately rebounded. But it was not over. 3 small golden swords flickered in the air, suddenly appearing and falling from the sky, cutting the 10 threads of blood into 2. With a whoosh, the broken threads of blood rebounded back into the silver puppet's hand. The puppet's cold face revealed a mocking smile. Not only did you not beg for mercy, you even dared to retaliate. Not only had he rebounded the threads of blood, he had even dared to pursue and attack the threads of blood with his sword. In times of crisis, humans would act instinctively and fearlessly. But for someone like Su Yu to retaliate, it was not instinctive, but a conscious action. This meant that Su Yu was not afraid of him. If you had not touched something you shouldn't have, I might have spared your life. But now, since you have touched that item, there is no way I will let you live. The silver puppet's face was filled with murderous intent. For some reason, Su Yu had taken the 9 jade spiritual pearl, and he wanted to kill Su Yu. In fact, killing Su Yu was more important than taking back the 9 jade spiritual pearl. Die! The silver puppet let out a cold grunt. Its entire body was blood red, the result of countless threads of blood gushing out from its pores. In an instant, the silver puppet was like a volcano, spewing out trillions of threads of blood from its body. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he imbued vital energy into the blue pearl. The blue pearl shot out a blue beam of light, enveloping Su Yu within it. Creak, creak, creak. Then, the blue beam of light was swallowed by the sea of blood. Countless threads of blood attacked the beam of light, causing dense ripples on its surface. But this was only the first wave of the threads of blood. There were still countless threads of blood to come. Creak. Not long after, the blue beam of light let out a cracking sound. A hair-thin crack was spreading from the front of the beam of light. A line of blood struggled out of the crack and shot straight at Su Yu. Su Yu held the small golden sword in his hand and cut it in half. However, the blue light pillar could no longer hold on. That crack had already gradually expanded to the size of half a pillar of light, and the crack was gradually becoming thicker. Densely packed blood threads were currently surging in through the crack. Looking at the world outside that resembled a sea of blood, anyone would feel despair. Even Bai Yijian, who was at the level of the fairy realm, had died without even leaving behind a corpse, let alone a half-fairy. Su Yu held the golden sword in one hand and cut off the incoming blood thread. At the same time, his other hand suddenly clenched tightly. The surrounding air once again converged toward Su Yu's palm crazily and was being compressed continuously. Soon, a pitch-black ball the size of an eyeball spun in Su Yu's palm. The electricity produced by the friction with the air let out a soft sizzling sound. Traces of terrifying compression power seemed to be about to explode. At the same time, Su Yu's palm was dripping with blood. Cracking sounds could be heard from his entire arm. It was the sound of his bones breaking as they could not withstand the heavy pressure. His entire right arm was just as the Ghost King had predicted. If he forcefully used it a second time, there was a high chance that it would be crippled. At that moment, his entire arm was not far from being crippled. Fortunately, Su Yu had a few body training experiences. Although his physical body was not very strong, it was still slightly stronger than other people of the same cultivation level. That was why his arm could barely hold on. Bang! The light pillar shattered and the sea of blood swept over. Su Yu no longer hesitated and threw the black ball in his palm. Everywhere it passed, the space was crushed into pieces. What more, a sea of blood! The vast sea of blood was crushed by the space of the black ball, creating a huge gap. A ray of sunlight shone down, giving Su Yu the feeling that he had seen the light of day again. Time was tight, so Su Yu did not waste any time. Stepping on the blue pearl, he followed behind the black ball and shot upwards. In an instant, Su Yu had rushed out of the sea of blood and was rushing towards the gap at the top of the great bone palace. The silver puppet was stunned for a moment, its face filled with surprise. It had obviously not expected Su Yu to be able to use an attack of this level. Its power was even stronger than that of an ordinary early-stage fairy. However, what surprised the silver puppet the most was that Su Yu's attack was not affected by the rules of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. There were no signs of him being transported. This was the reason why it was in a daze. After coming back to its senses, it was not very anxious. It snorted and said, "You think you can escape from my hands? You have underestimated me." As it spoke, its body flashed with a silver light and it turned into a fragmentary shadow, instantly catching up to Su Yu. Using its palm as a knife, it drew a long crack in the space in the air and slashed at Su Yu's head. Its movements were as fast as lightning. By the time Su Yu could react, he would most likely have already died. However, Su Yu's expression was calm. He took out a long sword covered in lightning from his sleeve. He held it in his left hand and imbued it with powerful vital energy, then slashed it down with a loud bang. At that moment, a 500 zhang long sword energy cut through the space like lightning. Thunder-based semi-manufactured spiritual artifact? The silver puppet was surprised once again. However, there was no fear on its face. This sword is very strong. If it was held by a middle-stage fairy, I might be a little afraid. Unfortunately, as it spoke, it slashed its palm forward without fear. Creak. The 500 zhang long thunderous sword energy was deflected by the palm, flying back towards Su Yu. On the other hand, the silver puppet's palm was not injured in the slightest. The 500 zhang thunderous sword energy was deflected back at a terrifying speed, engulfing Su Yu. However, Su Yu was not afraid. Instead, he heaved a sigh of relief, revealing an expression as if he had expected it. The eternal Stone King armor appeared around his body. At the same time, the blue pearl beneath his feet once again released a beam of light. With 2 layers of protection, Su Yu was firmly trapped within it. At that moment, the sword energy came crashing back, creating a huge impact. With a cracking sound, the blue beam of light shattered on the spot. The Eternal Stone King armor also shook violently, demonic energy surging. Su Yu had naturally suffered a strong impact as well. The blood in his body churned continuously, and there was a metallic taste in his throat. However, because of this impact, Su Yu charged out of the opening with an unstoppable momentum. The silver puppet then realized that Su Yu clearly knew that the thunderous sword could not injure him. He had purposely used it in order to wait for this rebound force. "Using me?" The silver puppet's sneering face was now filled with anger. If he had not been careless, how could he have been used by such a junior? However, before he could react, a beam of black light followed Su Yu and charged out. "Humph, all of you are courting death." The silver puppet was furious, one after another escaping from his sight. His figure flickered and he was about to charge out. Before he left, he coldly looked back at the only person left in the space, Xing Xuelian. At that moment, Xing Xuelian was still standing in the same spot, with no intention of leaving. When she met the silver puppet's eyes, she did not show any signs of panic. Instead, she looked at him calmly. The silver puppet was stunned. It looked deeply into Xing Xuelian's eyes, as if it had discovered something. After a moment, it was slightly surprised. "You are..." Xing Xuelian did not speak, but merely smiled. The silver puppet had a hesitant look on its face. After a moment of silence, it said, "Forget it. Whether or not you were hired by that person, I will let you go." When it finished speaking, it charged out of the opening, chasing after Su Yu and the Ghost King. Xing Xuelian stood in the same spot, smiling without saying a word. Her gaze was profound. Chapter 566. After Su Yu escaped from the Great Bone Palace, he immediately weaved signs with both hands. The vital energy within his body surged out, separating into 2 figures that looked exactly like Su Yu. The second-grade clone technique, with the help of Xia Jingyu's level of comprehension, had successfully comprehended the second stage, allowing him to create 2 clones at the same time. Regardless of their cultivation level or aura, they were exactly the same as the real Su Yu. The 2 Su Yu clones looked at each other, each choosing a direction to leave in. Su Yu's main body paused for a moment, then took out a black spell flag. It was the Ice Soul Divine Dream spell that he had obtained from the 7th level of the Divine Pavilion. According to Lu Qi, This spell was one of the top illusionary spells in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. It could even trap an almighty divine master for a period of time. His eyes flashing, Suyu stuck the flag into the surface of the star and quickly infused vital energy into it. At that moment, a black light shot out. It was the Ghost King. However, he had no time to care about Suyu. His expression was grave as he escaped into the sky. Suyu looked at his departing figure, his eyes narrowing as a murderous intent flashed in them. He and Bai Yijian were down there, and they wanted his life. However, Suyu could not care about him right now. As he infused his true qi into the flag, the black flag immediately emitted a dim light, transforming into a boundless snowfield. The Ice Soul Divine Dream spell was a success. After doing all this, Suyu immediately left. Not long after he left, the enraged silver puppet shot up into the sky. However, when it charged out, it found itself in a world of ice and snow. Illusion spell? The silver puppet's eyes narrowed, flames of anger rising in its eyes. It's that damned brat again. The Ghost King did not have the time to set up a spell. Only Suyu, who had escaped first, could have done it. After trying to scan it, the silver puppet's expression became even colder. Humph, this is no ordinary illusion spell. Unfortunately, while it might be effective against ordinary people, I am a puppet, and it cannot trap me for long. The silver puppet let out a cold grunt, then sat down cross-legged, as if sensing something. Suyu's main body chose a direction and escaped 100,000 miles away, entering a vast world of ruins. From the remains of the ruins, it could be vaguely seen that this was once an extremely prosperous area. The houses were continuous and the city walls were huge. The remaining grand buildings quietly told of the glory of the past. This place should be similar to the valley in the Nine Jade Spiritual Pearl, Suyu muttered. In the space of the Nine Jade Spiritual Pearl, the small valley had also become a world that could be inhabited, similar to this place. The difference was that the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion space was vast, tens of thousands of times larger than the Nine Jade Spiritual Pearl. Suyu was just about to descend from the sky and look for a place to hide among the ruins. However, he suddenly noticed something out of the corner of his eye. Filled with curiosity, Suyu flew upward for a while until he reached the highest point of the 8th level of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Looking down, Suyu was stunned. The ruins were actually a giant palm print. In other words, a towering palm print descended from the sky and turned the entire city into ruins, leaving behind an incomparably huge palm print. How could Suyu not be shocked? Ancient civilizations that had been destroyed by the mysterious palm print could be found everywhere in the Zhenlong continent. However, it was one thing for them to appear in the Zhenlong continent, but why would they appear in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion? Tianjizi's remnant soul had once said that the so-called mysterious heavenly divine pavilion was actually a fairy artifact that he always carried with him. It had been destroyed in a great battle. Could these ruins have been destroyed by Tianjizi's enemy? How was his enemy related to the owner of the palm print that had destroyed many ancient civilizations in the Zhenlong continent? The unexpected discovery caused Suyu to sink into deep thought. Zhenlong continent, Jiuzhou continent, mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. What kind of connection did they have? Suyu floated down with doubts in his mind. There were no living creatures in the ruins, so there was no danger. Suyu chose a half-buried ruin and entered it. He quickly restrained his aura, binding his spirit energy and vital energy within his dantian, not letting any of it leak out. As such, if no one intentionally searched for it, they would not discover the existence of living creatures in the ruins. Heaving a long sigh, Suyu lowered his head to look at his right hand. Now that his blood had cooled, the piercing pain came back, causing Suyu to clench his teeth in pain. After examining it, he found that the bones in his arm had been broken into 3 parts. His injury was quite serious. Fortunately, his meridians and flesh were not damaged, and his foundation was not harmed. Suyu heaved a sigh of relief and let his arm fall back to its original state. However, his left hand did not stop there. His eyes flickered as he took out a black scroll from his ring and buried it in the ground. After doing this, Suyu began to calculate the gains and losses of this trip. He had taken the risk to enter the legacy of materials in order to find the lightning-avoiding silver pearl and gather the materials needed to cultivate the evil-destroying silver eyes. However, it was a pity that the legendary lightning-based material in the last legacy of materials was not the lightning-avoiding silver pearl that Suyu was looking for. Instead, it was another lightning-based material. If he were to calculate it carefully, apart from taking the risk, he had not gained anything else. He had finally obtained a precious treasure that was suitable for him, such as the real spirit dragon vein. However, it had been snatched away by a small Cauldron that had suddenly appeared. Of the 3 black metal boxes, the last one, which had not been opened, had also been snatched away by that hateful little Cauldron. Speaking of which, Suyu wasn't too angry. The real spirit dragon vein had been exposed to many people, and if one of them had spread the news, it would have been a disaster for him. The little Cauldron had snatched it away in front of so many people, and it could be said that it had inadvertently helped him get rid of a huge threat. After that, he had not obtained any benefits from the legacy of materials. Instead, he had encountered many dangers. In the end, even the silver puppet had appeared. Fortunately, he had gone through the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion and obtained many powerful magical treasures. This was why he had managed to survive until now. If he was given another chance, Suyu did not dare to guarantee that he would be able to escape from the inner part of the star. Moreover, he had also been separated from Xiaojingyu, so he did not know where she was or whether she was safe. The one who had gained the most from this trip was probably that little Cauldron. The real spirit dragon vein, the black metal box, the underworld pearl, and Baijia's 8-directional bamboo flute had all been snatched away by that little Cauldron. As for those 4 treasures, apart from the black metal box, which Suyu had no idea what they were, the other 3 were all extremely heavy and precious treasures. The real spirit dragon vein was a great treasure that even the almighty divine masters would fight over. Perhaps even the all-creation old monsters would be interested in it. The underworld pearl was a treasure from the ghost world. It contained dense ghost energy and was definitely a rare treasure. The 8-directional bamboo flute was a middle-grade spiritual artifact that could control the remnant souls of dead spirits. It could even control the remnant souls of all creation old monsters. How precious was it! Each of the 3 items was extremely tempting. However, they had all been taken by that little Cauldron. As he thought of this, Suyu could not help but laugh at himself. In the end, he had gained nothing. Chapter 567. His vital energy and spiritual energy were at their lowest after the consecutive battles and activating several semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts that had depleted his vital energy. He had to recover quickly. As he recovered, Suyu did not remain idle. His soul entered the 9-jade spiritual pearl. Appearing in the spiritual pearl, Suyu looked around and said, "I think you are still here?" In the quiet spiritual pearl, his voice reverberated clearly. But there was still no reply after a while. It was only when Suyu furrowed his brows that a ball of light suddenly appeared in front of him. Within the ball of light was the vague shadow of a 9-tailed fox. She was the previous owner of the 9-jade spiritual pearl. Ever since she first appeared, she had completely disappeared, only appearing when Suyu called for her. "Why are you looking for me?" The 9-tailed white fox's voice was very weak. Suyu's eyes flickered. "Can you tell me what your relationship with that silver puppet is?" Intuition told Suyu that this 9-tailed white fox was hiding something from him. The 9-tailed white fox was not surprised. "You're only asking now? It looks like that puppet has found you." "I have nothing to do with him." That day, when the two all creation's old monsters were fighting, I was accidentally drawn into this fairy artifact. The silver puppet and many others who were fighting at that time were also drawn into it. I was severely injured for some reason at that time, and the silver puppet encountered me. In the end, I was swallowed into its stomach. Then, this puppet was injured by some expert and has been in a deep slumber ever since. It only recovered some of its energy when you barged in. The nine-tailed white fox said leisurely. For it to chase you and force you to hide, it looks like it has already swallowed a large amount of blood essence and recovered quite a bit. Fight? Was it referring to the battle between Tianjizi and his nemesis, Shwedi? What was the reason for the rest of the people fighting? But from its words, it clearly explained the various relics that had mysteriously appeared in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. It was probably the legacy left behind by the many strong men who had been drawn into it, seeing that there was no hope of escaping. The legacy of the Thunder Emperor was one of them. Yes, it is close to the Divine Master level, Suyu said. The nine-tailed white fox sighed. Then you can only hide carefully. If it was at its peak, that silver puppet would only be able to escape upon seeing me. Now, it is only a remnant soul and cannot help you. Su Yu's intuition told him that the nine-tailed white fox was hiding part of the truth. From the looks of it, he wasn't going to tell the truth. Since that's the case, then I'm sorry for disturbing you. Su Yu cupped his fists at him. The nine-tailed white fox nodded her head gracefully. Her figure became blurry and dissipated. Before she disappeared, she paused and said, "Young master, please keep my wish in mind." With the oath, I can't forget it even if I wanted to. Su Yu nodded slightly. The price of obtaining the 9-jade spiritual pearl was to head to the demonic fox clan and send a message to the demonic fox clan on behalf of the white nine-tailed fox. Then I can rest assured. The white nine-tailed fox slowly disappeared, leaving behind a lingering sound that echoed in the valley. Demon Fox Clan? Su Yu was getting more and more curious about the Jiuzhou continent. What kind of world was it? There was the ghost race and the demon fox race. How did they get along with humans? Master, Wu Aoyue, who had rushed over, was also alarmed. It had only been a day since they last met, but Wu Aoyue's aura had become a lot more vigorous. Strands of true energy were faintly discernible. This was because she had just stepped into the half-immortal realm, and her control over her true energy wasn't stable enough. Congratulations, you have broken through to the half-immortal realm. Su Yu had a smile on his face. She had also broken through to the one crystal half-immortal realm, and her vital energy was very pure. The spiritual energy in the other two spiritual crystals was also very pure. If she concentrated on her cultivation, she would soon achieve the 3 crystals top class. Wu Aoyue's cold and arrogant face could not help but smile sweetly. Her smile was like a snow lotus, cold and beautiful. Sensing that she had lost control of herself, Wu Aoyue forcefully stopped smiling. She blamed herself in her heart. It was as if she had become more and more comfortable in front of Su Yu. For a moment she had even forgotten that she was a slave. This feeling of guilt from forgetting the humiliation had become Wu Aoyue's guilt. "It is all a reward from you, master," Wu Aoyue said, her face expressionless. Sensing the change in her attitude, Su Yu did not care. "How is it? Are there any changes to the heavenly orchid silver bamboo?" Hearing this, Wu Aoyue's face revealed a hint of surprise. "Master, there is movement." The heavenly orchid silver bamboo was a rare divine tree in Jiuzhou. Even though she was trying to control herself, she could not hide her excitement. The heavenly orchid silver bamboo, which even an all-creation old monster might not be able to grow, was about to be born. What? Su Yu was also delighted. This was good news that he had not heard in a long time. Raising his hand, Su Yu brought Wu Aoyue to the front of the cottage's nursery. Now that the thunder herb had been plucked, only the snow-white incredible feather spiritual pomegranate tree was left. The fruits that had been plucked from the tree had started to grow again. There were 3 or 4 green fruits that were the size of a fist. The speed at which they were growing was astounding. In the outside world, such fruits would only bloom and bear fruit once every 10 years. However, in the 9 jade spiritual pearls' supreme growing soil, they would bloom once every half a month. In a few days, the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion would end, and the exchange festival would be held on the divine sparrow stage. However, with the silver puppets massacre, it was unknown whether the exchange festival would be held successfully or how many people would be left. At the 7th level of the divine pavilion, more than 100 geniuses from various factions had become the silver puppet's nourishment. Thinking about the silver puppet, Suyu felt as if there was a knife hanging over his head. Taking a light breath, Suyu looked at the nursery where the heavenly orchid silver bamboo was growing. 2 jade-like saplings had grown out of the nursery. At first glance, they looked like lush green jade onions. They had only grown half an inch out of the soil. Are these the saplings of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo? Suyu's eyes were burning with passion. Once they matured, they could be plucked and made into the other 6 golden swords. Then, they could form the 9 yin-yang sword formation. Its power was naturally incomparable to the power of the 9 steel needles. The power that it would explode with would be considerable. Suyu's mood relaxed. Finally, there was a piece of good news. However, before he could finish his sentence, a pink light suddenly flashed. Above the heavenly orchid silver bamboo, a pink fog appeared out of thin air. From it, a living creature the size of a palm jumped out. Suyu was stunned. It was the real spirit Kylan. When did it hide in the 9 jade spiritual pearl? At that moment, the little Kylan opened its mouth wide, excitedly opening its mouth to bite the newly born heavenly orchid silver bamboo. Suyu could not help but laugh in anger. Not only did it snatch his real spirit dragon veins, it even dared to barge into his 9 jade spiritual pearl and eat the heavenly orchid silver bamboo? You're asking for death. Suyu's murderous intent flared up. His whole body was burning with a layer of white flames as he charged forward. The little Kylan was startled. Its 4 hooves came to a screeching halt, and it broke into a run. However, it did not escape to the outside world. Instead, it escaped into Wu Aoyue's arms. Wu Aoyue held the little Kylan in her arms, her eyes wide open. "Master, isn't this your pet? What are you doing?" The little Kylan's big eyes looked aggrieved, and it nodded hurriedly. It even stood up on its 2 front hooves and cupped its fists at Suyu. It was mumbling something incomprehensible. After a long while, it uttered 2 words with difficulty. "Master, master?" Suyu was dumbfounded. When did he become the master of the real spirit Kylan? Chapter 568. The little Qilin opened its mouth in an extremely aggrieved manner, and a large amount of pink mist sprayed out from its mouth. Ding! With a crisp sound, something fell to the ground. Suyu lowered his head to look, and his pupils involuntarily shrank. The true spirit dragon tendon, the black iron chest, the 8 desolation flute, and the underworld pearl were all inside the pink mist. The small Kylan's watery purple eyes became misty, and it jumped out of Wu Aoyue's embrace. It then jumped onto the ground and used its nose to push the treasures that it had snatched toward Suyu's feet. He had the intention of handing over all his treasures. Suyu was still unable to react. What just happened? Why did this infant immortal spirit recognize him as its master? Moreover, this was only the 2nd time that Suyu had seen it. They had never interacted with each other before. How did he become the owner of the little Qilin in such a muddle? "Master, it's not your spiritual pet?" Wu Aoyue was also dumbfounded. Suyu came back to his senses and asked hurriedly, "When did it appear?" "It happened not too long ago." Wu Aoyue was at a loss for words to express her feelings. That little Qilin was definitely not an ordinary demonic beast. It was definitely a deviant spirit, and there was even a slight possibility that it possessed a true spirit bloodline. It had taken the initiative to recognize Su Yu as its master, but Su Yu did not recognize it. Such a treasure that was delivered to her doorstep was almost killed by her master. This was the first time Wu Aoyue had heard of such a bizarre and unimaginable thing. When it came in, it said that it was your spirit pet and had been waiting for your return on the profound feather spiritual pomegranate tree. I didn't expect that you would kill it as soon as it appeared. Wu Aoyue clicked her tongue. The small Kylan had already brought the treasure to Su Yu's feet, and it was squatting on the ground pitifully. It raised its head and looked at Su Yu. Su Yu was still confused, and he was slightly on guard. Why did you recognize me as your master? When the little Qilin heard this, it immediately stood up like a human, and its two little hooves were gesturing in the air. Its mouth was babbling indistinctly, and it couldn't speak clearly for a long time. In the end, the small Kylan became anxious, so it lowered its head and bit its right front hoof, causing a wisp of blood to come out of it. Then, it spat the blood on Su Yu's body. Its blood was extremely hot, like flames. When it splashed onto the skin, there was a burst of burning pain. Su Yu didn't try to avoid it, as he knew that this was the little Kylan's way of expressing something. What surprised Su Yu the most was that the small Kylan's blood had entered his body through his pores and fused with his blood. Before long, a faint pink mist also appeared on the surface of Su Yu's body, which had some characteristics of a Kylan. Su Yu's body went from a physical state to a state of nothingness. This surprised Su Yu greatly. Could its blood directly allow others to possess its innate abilities? However, what shocked Su Yu even more was that deep within his mind, there was a ripple that had been silent for a long time. The fluctuations contained the aura of the little Qilin. A long time ago, his body already had the little Qilin's aura. Su Yu's mind rumbled, and a bolt of lightning flashed past. He speedily took out a pink scale from his interspatial ring and comparing it, it was the scale on little Qilin's body. You were the one who absorbed my soul energy from the skeleton? Su Yu cried out involuntarily. He was as shocked as he could be. In the past, he, Gang Dalai, Qin Zhiyang, and Yu Chan had been transported from the evil Ghost Valley to a secret room in the corpse grassland. There was a skeleton in the secret room. Later on, when Su Yu took it out from the silver puppet's body and opened the nothingness rib, a large amount of soul energy had been absorbed, and he had fainted on the spot. When he woke up, he discovered that his lost soul had increased dramatically, and his cultivation had also achieved a breakthrough. The rib's crack was empty, and there was only a scale left in its place. At that time, he had been puzzled, but now everything was clear. The thing in the rib was the sleeping small Qilin. Su Yu had awakened it, and while it was absorbing his soul, they had formed a master-servant relationship. Thinking about it, the large hole in the hard silver body of the silver puppet was also dug out by the small Qilin. Feeling the true master-servant relationship, Su Yu had mixed feelings for a moment. After all, the small Qilin was Su Yu's spiritual pet. After understanding Su Yu's feelings, the small Qilin was full of grievances, and its big eyes were filled with tears. It twisted its head and looked like it was throwing a tantrum. Su Yu smacked his lips and didn't know what to do. After a while, he squatted down and stroked its head. He then said in a gentle voice, "I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you. I was in a coma that day, so I didn't have any impression of you. Did I scare you just now?" The small Qilin felt even more aggrieved, and its tears flowed unceasingly as it gestured with its little hooves. Su Yu suddenly realized that he could understand the meaning of the small Qilin's gesture. "Are you saying that you left by yourself to look for treasures for me?" Su Yu asked. The small Qilin nodded its head in grievance and started whimpering. Su Yu didn't need it to say anything, as he had witnessed it being chased by people and fleeing everywhere. If it hadn't been gifted with the ability to switch between reality and illusion, it would have met with misfortune by now. In the end, not only had it not been recognized by its master, but it had also almost been killed by him. Since you knew that I was its master, why did you snatch my real spirit dragon veins in the wisest Milky Way formation? Suyu voiced his doubts. The small Qilin gestured once again, and Suyu quickly understood its meaning. He couldn't help but be moved. Are you saying that you knew that this item was very important, and you were worried that someone would covet it and attack me? That's why you snatched it in front of everyone? Suyu was shocked. After the small Qilin snatched the item, it had shifted its attention to him. At that time, the small Qilin had been protecting him. As he recalled what Xia Jingyu had said, the small Qilin had broken the 4 divisions mountain tumbling formation and pounced toward him. It seemed like Xia Jingyu had misunderstood it. At that time, the small Qilin had sensed Su Yu's aura, so it had come over to acknowledge him. However, it had been discovered by Xia Jingyu and the others, and its identity as a young real spirit had been exposed. The small Qilin realized that if it acknowledged him now, it would bring trouble to Suyu. Hence, it had treated Suyu like a stranger. After everything had been settled, it turned into a void and entered Suyu's 9 jade spiritual pearl. Suyu picked it up and said apologetically, "I'm sorry for troubling you. Although we have a soul connection, it's still our first time meeting each other. Why did you have to go so far for me?" As it felt Suyu's understanding, the small Qilin's grievance was greatly reduced, and it gestured with its hooves. "Are you saying that you want to thank me for releasing you from the seal? Are you saying that you want to repay me?" Suyu asked. The small Qilin nodded its head. Suyu's fondness for this small Qilin grew even more. Its innocence, cleverness, and mischievousness made him feel like he had just met Xiener for the first time. Suyu stroked its head and said sincerely, "If you don't have a home, then the 9 jade spiritual pearl will be your home from now on. If you have a home, I will send you back once I'm safe." The small Qilin shook its head and gestured. It meant that its previous owner had already passed away, and it was the only one left. Was its previous owner referring to the skeleton's owner? It seemed like it belonged to the Divine Master 2Mo. Suyu wondered what kind of person he was when he was alive, as he had unexpectedly captured a young real spirit as a pet. Chapter 569. The only thing he knew was that this infant real spirit, which even in all creation old monster yearned for, had become Suyu's pet. However, Suyu thought for a moment, then said, "If you don't have anything else to do, just stay in the 9 jade spiritual pearl. Before you become strong enough, appearing here means great danger." Infant real spirit? Just these words alone were enough to shock everyone. Once it appeared in front of people, it was obvious that it would be hunted down. Hearing this, the small Qilin was somewhat dissatisfied. It was naturally lively, and it seemed like it didn't want to stay in the 9 jade spiritual pearl. The small Qilin rolled its eyes and jumped off Suyu's body, its whole body flickering with pink light. A moment later, a woman's figure walked out of the light mist. It was a beautiful and ethereal face. Her beauty, which didn't belong to this world, overshadowed all things that claimed to be beautiful and made anyone who harbored evil thoughts feel ashamed of their inferiority. It was a breathtaking beauty. Xia Jingyu? Suyu was shocked. The woman who walked out of the light mist was Xia Jingyu. Her beautiful appearance and her otherworldly aura were extremely similar. The only difference was that Xia Jingyu's beautiful eyes had been replaced by a pair of small Qilin's purple pupils. Coupled with Xia Jingyu's appearance, it added a strange sense of mystery to her. Suyu was startled, and he only reacted when the small Qilin jumped into his arms. He then pushed it away uncomfortably. Cough. Cough. Why did you become like this? Suyu asked. The small Qilin still couldn't speak clearly, so it gestured with its 2 hands. It meant that it was naturally proficient in illusion techniques, and ordinary people couldn't tell it apart. However, Suyu was more concerned about it. "I'm asking you why you became like Xia Jingyu." The small Qilin tilted its head and gestured with its hands. It then said indistinctly, "Master. In your soul, the person who engraved the deepest." Suyu's heart shook, and he became absent-minded. The most important person in his heart was Qin Xianer, so when did it become Xia Jingyu? Impossible. Impossible. Su Yu was slightly flustered. He could deceive himself, but the small Kylin wouldn't. According to its senses, Xia Jingyu's impression in Su Yu's soul was deeper than Qin Xianer's, so he had become like Xia Jingyu. After remaining silent for a long time, Su Yu revealed a bitter smile. When the mountains were barren and the heavens and earth were united, only then would I dare to be with you. When he heard these words, he should have known that the most important person in his heart was really Qin Xianer. Could it be that there had never been a Xia Jingyu? It wasn't that he didn't have it, but he didn't want to admit it. If Xia Jingyu were to marry someone else one day, what would Su Yu do? Could he really watch her marry someone else? Between Qin Xianer and Xia Jingyu, who did he love? It was difficult to satisfy both sides. The human heart was only so big, and it could only contain one person. Once he had one, he couldn't contain the other. He thought that he had Qin Xianer in his heart, but in reality, he had Xia Jingyu in his heart. Did he really love Xianer? After knowing each other for a few days, they became engaged. After that, they separated for a short time and then separated again. To this day, he hadn't even had a proper conversation with Xian. What kept them together was the fiancé contract, Qin Xianer's sincere attachment, the fact that she was always considerate of Su Yu, and the fact that Su Yu was filled with love and responsibility. For Qin Xianer, Su Yu's responsibility and protection were greater than his feelings for her. For Xia Jingyu, Su Yu had true feelings for her. Time and time again, she had risked her life for him. Time and time again, she had moved him. Time and time again, she had gone through thick and thin with him. It was all because of Xia Jingyu. If Qin Xianer's feelings were like a trickling stream, silently nourishing all things and making people feel reluctant to part with her, then Xia Jingyu's feelings were like a surging river. Then Xia Jingyu's emotions were like a surging river. It was always shocking, exciting, and unforgettable. Bitterness filled the corners of his mouth. For the first time, he admitted his heart. However, he didn't want to face the most. "Master, what's wrong? Are you unhappy? Let me change my appearance." The small Kylin didn't understand Su Yu's expression. Its figure flickered, and this time, it changed into Qin Xianer's appearance. It was vivid and lifelike, and even its intelligent and playful eyes were exactly the same. "So, Qin Xianer is really behind me?" Su Yu was startled for a long time. The joy he had felt from obtaining a young real spirit as a spiritual pet had dissipated. After he calmed down, Su Yu looked at the small Kylin and said, "You should change your appearance." The small Kylin nodded, then obediently changed into its human form again. This time, it changed into Lu Chui. How could it be her? Could she be second only to Qin Xianer in Su Yu's heart? Immediately, Su Yu understood that the feelings in his heart weren't romantic feelings for her. They were feelings of guilt. Among all the women, Lu Chui was the only one that Su Yu couldn't let go of. More importantly, she had someone else in her heart, and Su Yu had taken away her first time. Su Yu was filled with guilt towards Lu Chui, so he had left a deep impression on her. "Do you still want to change?" The small Kylin blinked its large purple eyes, its small mouth twitching as it gestured with its hands. Its expression was playful, the complete opposite of Lu Chui's coldness. "Forget it. That's it. But, if you can avoid leaving the 9-jade spiritual pearl, try not to leave it," Su Yu instructed. The small Kylin giggled and intimately rubbed itself against him. Su Yu pushed it away helplessly, then changed the topic. "By the way, why did you pounce on the heavenly orchid silver bamboo just now? Do you like to eat this kind of spiritual item? An real spirit item's diet might be unusual." However, the small Kylin shook its head. It pulled Su Yu to the nursery, then pointed at the right of the two seedlings. Su Yu was puzzled. After observing it carefully, he realized that the heavenly orchid silver bamboo on the right seemed to be slightly dimmer. The one on the left was green and lush, while the one on the right was slightly dimmer. The small Kylan gestured again. Suyu understood and was shocked. Are you saying that there's a worm growing in this seedling? The small Kylan nodded its head, then opened its mouth and inhaled. A formless suction force, which contained an invisible power, traveled from the surface of the seedling to the depths. A pink mist flickered, and a worm the size of a grain of rice was sucked out of the silver seedling. It was round and wriggling on the ground, looking full. The heavenly orchid silver bamboo can grow worms? Suyu was very surprised. How hard was the seed of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo? It wasn't any weaker than the root in Lu Chi's hand. What kind of worm could burrow into the heavenly orchid silver bamboo and devour its essence? Looking at the dim and haggard seedling of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo, Suyu couldn't help but feel angry. He lifted his foot to stomp it to death. The worm was so strange. Once it multiplied in the nursery, any crops planted in the future would be destroyed. Wait, master! Wu Aoyue called out after thinking for a moment. As she spoke, she ran over and placed the seedling in a jade box. After observing it carefully for a moment, her face gradually filled with shock and doubt. Wait, master. Let me check the books. I think I've seen this kind of worm in the books about ancient spiritual worms. Ancient spiritual worm? Speaking of which, these two seeds of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo were quite old. The worm's appearance was also very sudden. Before this, there hadn't been any worms in the 9 jade spiritual pearl. Could it be that the ancient spiritual worm sleeping in the seeds of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo had been awakened as the heavenly orchid silver bamboo sprouted? Chapter 570. Upon closer inspection, the worm, which was about the size of a grain of rice, had a smooth and glossy body and was emitting a lustrous glow. Its body emitted a delicate fragrance, like the fragrance of a flower. Moreover, an extremely strong life force seeped out of the worm's body slowly. The seemingly weak worm's life force was no weaker than the white smoke fire glass frogs. Wu Aoyue took out a thick book from her space ring. It was called the Ancient Spiritual Book. This is the Book of the Purple Cloud Palace, Wu Aoyue said. It records the ancient spiritual objects that have appeared in the history of the Jojo continent, including some ancient spiritual worms. Wu Aoyue flipped through the book quickly. Many pictures appeared in the book, and she compared them carefully. After flipping through more than half of the book, she still could not find the corresponding picture. Wu Aoyue could not help but wonder if she had remembered something wrong. In the end, after flipping through the entire book, she still could not find the corresponding picture. Wu Aoyue's eyes flashed. Maybe I remembered wrongly. Suyu was also disappointed. This book recorded almost all ancient spiritual worms. If this worm was not among the ones recorded, it was unlikely that it was an ancient spiritual worm. It could be just a slightly special worm. Chapter 571. Even if it was the lowest level of mutation, the silk it spat out would not be ordinary. Even if he could not use it, Xiener, Xia Jingyu, and the Duke of Xianyu could. Yes. Wu Aoyue took out a slightly larger container and placed the worm inside. She would throw in food from time to time. However, both she and Suyu did not notice that when Wu Aoyue took back the alms bowl with the demonic beast pattern, the second pattern streaked across with a beam of light. At this moment, Suyu finally had the time to deal with the 4 treasures that the little Kylan had stolen. Suyu raised his hand and sucked the real spirit dragon veins into his palm. He was delighted by the fact that he had regained what he had lost. This kind of thread-like magical treasure was Suyu's best offensive magical treasure. Moreover, what was even more amazing was that no one knew that the dragon vein had actually returned to Suyu's side. Next was the 8-directional bamboo flute. This flute could control souls and possessed an extremely powerful deathly energy. Suyu had witnessed its terror with his own eyes. It was a pity that the matching ruler was missing. 8 Desolation's 6 directions. The 8 Desolation flute was used to attack while the 6 directions ruler was used to defend. The six-directional ruler had most likely been swallowed by the silver puppet's blood threads along with Bai Yijian's death. After that was the Yellow Springs Pearl. Like the Desolate Sea Lost Pearl, this pearl was sealed in the final inheritance land. This showed how important it was. The Desolate Sea Lost Pearl contained the power of thunder, which was an important material for the prototype fairy artifact to enter the next stage. As for the Underworld Pearl, it was Su Yu's first time hearing about it, so he had no idea what its effects were. The treasure of the Ghost Realm, the Underworld Pearl. Wu Aiyue followed Su Yu's gaze and looked over. Her eyes were filled with surprise and shock. Could it be that Master has entered the legacy of materials guarded by the descendants of the Guardians? Su Yu asked. Why? Do you know about the Underworld Pearl? Wu Aiyue clicked her tongue. In the 9 prefectures, who doesn't know him? During the Great War between humans and ghosts 100 years ago, the Lord of the Ghost World released 5 treasures refined from the Underworld Pearl and slaughtered all the old monsters in the Jiuzhou continent. No one could stop him. If it wasn't for the sudden situation in the Ghost Realm that caused the Ghost Realm's army to retreat, I'm afraid that our 9 prefectures would have already been destroyed by the Ghost Lord. Upon hearing this, Su Yu's eyes flickered. Jiuzhou's human clan and the Ghost clan had such a great battle? Also, was the Underworld Pearl that powerful? There should be more than one all creation's old monster in the Jiuzhou continent, right? This Underworld Pearl should have been left behind by the human clan's all creation's old monsters when the Lord of the Ghost World retreated. Judging from its power, it should be much more damaged and no longer as mighty as it was in the past. If the Underworld Pearl was at its peak, Tianjizi wouldn't have ended up like this. Do you know the details of that great battle? Su Yu asked. Wu Aiyue shook her head. That battle was extremely huge, and it affected the entire Jiuzhou continent. As such, I am unable to explain all of the details to you. The only thing I know is that more than half of the almighty humans from the human clan perished, and their vitality was greatly damaged. The owner of the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion, Tianjizi, unfortunately perished in the process of surrounding and attacking the king of the Ghost World. Even the fairy artifact, the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion, was destroyed, and it is now floating in the void. Back then, there were countless strong martial artists who died or went missing at the same time. After some investigation, it was found that there were many relics in the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion that belonged to those strong martial artists who had gone missing. It was unknown what happened, but they were all sucked into the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion. Su Yu raised his brows. No. Tianjizi perished at the hands of Xuedi, not at the hands of the king of the Ghost World. If you are interested, you can look for some ancient books to read. There are many such books, but only the large factions have records of more secretive information. The Purple Cloud Palace has them. Su Yu nodded, deep in thought. All right, we'll talk about it later. He naturally couldn't go to the Purple Cloud Palace, not because of Wu Aiyue's identity, but because of Lu Chuyi. Lu Chuyi was the outer sanctum elder of the Purple Cloud Palace. How would he have the face to go to the Purple Cloud Palace? What is the use of this Underworld Pearl? Su Yu picked it up curiously. Then, he suddenly realized that he couldn't grab it. It was as if this tiny pearl was the weight of dozens of mountains. Wu Aiyue pursed her lips into a smile. It seems like you already know the use of the Underworld Pearl. In this world, the Underworld Pearl is the densest. Only strong martial artists who cultivate body-strengthening techniques can wield this pearl. The fact that the little Kylan could bring it here must have something to do with the space in its body. Su Yu suddenly understood. Could it be that the unusual weight of the central star in the wisest Milky Way formation was due to this Underworld Pearl? This item could even crush all creation's old monsters to death. It would be strange if Su Yu and the little Kylan could grab it. This pearl contains the essence blood of the master of the Ghost World. Even all creation's old monsters can't refine it for their own use. Master, you shouldn't spend too much effort on it. Even if it can be refined, you still need to cultivate a strong physique, Wu Aoyue said. The underworld pearl was a supreme treasure of the ghost world. It could only be seen but not touched. It was completely useless. Is that so? Su Yu stroked his chin as he placed his palm on the underworld pearl. With a thought, a silver talisman slowly rotated in Su Yu's palm. Before long, a wisp of black ghost energy, which reeked of blood, slowly seeped out of the underworld pearl. Wu Aoyue was startled, and then she was horrified. The imprint has been expelled. You? What have you done? The shock in her heart was even greater than when she discovered the existence of the 9 Jades spiritual pearl. A supreme treasure that even all creation's old monsters couldn't refine was successfully expelled by Su Yu. How was this possible? After a while, Su Yu retracted his palm. His face was pale and he seemed very tired. He was also extremely shocked. He had used the Milky Way star sand to purify the imprint, but the Milky Way star sand had only absorbed 1% of the imprint. Moreover, it had consumed a great deal of his mental strength. Now, he was even more exhausted. As expected of the treasure of the master of the ghost world, it can even withstand the power of an emperor-based saint artifact. Su Yu was secretly shocked. It seemed that if he wanted to completely refine the underworld pearl, even if he worked day and night, it would still take 3 whole months. Su Yu's eyes shone with excitement and anticipation. He didn't know what kind of power it would unleash after refining it. Even if it was in a damaged state, it should still be extremely powerful, right? The rewards he had gained from this trip were immeasurable. All of this was due to the little Kylan. You should stay in the 9 Jade spiritual pearl for now. I still have to deal with a strong enemy. It's not good for you to show yourself, Su Yu said. The little Kylan was a little dissatisfied, but it nodded obediently. It tugged at Su Yu's trousers with its 2 hooves, indicating that it should let him out as soon as possible. With a faint smile, Su Yu looked at the last treasure, the iron box. This box had also been snatched by the little Kylan. Originally, it was supposed to be broken up and opened with Xia Jingyu. After thinking for a moment, Su Yu gave up. He would open it with Xia Jingyu when he found her. With a thought, Su Yu exited the space and returned to his body. He had already rested here for 4 hours. The injury on his right arm was not a big deal, and his bones had healed quite a bit. After breaking through to the half-fairy realm, he possessed vital energy, which was very effective in healing his injuries. It seemed that he would be able to fully recover in half a day's time. However, right at that moment, Su Yu felt a pain in his chest. His expression changed slightly. It broke through the formation so quickly, and it even destroyed one of my clones? Su Yu's clone could sense it, so he could naturally sense it after it was destroyed. According to his plan, the Ice Soul Divine Dream spell should have been able to trap the puppet for a day. If he was lucky, it could have been trapped until the end of the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion 5 days later. He had not expected that it would break through the formation in just 4 hours, and that it would quickly find a clone. It seemed like he could not go out for the time being. Otherwise, the possibility of being discovered would be very high. Chapter 572. In the darkness, a majestic figure stepped out. With a green face and fangs, he was surrounded by ghost energy. Who else could it be but the Ghost King? Su Yu did not believe that the Ghost King had coincidentally found this hidden place and met him by chance. After all, the Ghost King had escaped in another direction. If even the Ghost King could easily find Su Yu, wouldn't it be even easier for the silver puppet to find him? The Ghost King looked at his empty right arm and smiled. Would it be difficult for me to sense your location after taking my arm? Hearing this, Su Yu's heart trembled, but he also heaved a sigh of relief. In the Zhenlong continent, the Ghost King had cut off one of his arms to show his sincerity in cooperating with Su Yu. That arm was now in Su Yu's space ring. The Ghost King could easily sense the direction of his arm using his blood essence. It was not that he had not hidden well, but that he had been careless. Do you have any advice for me? It is not too late to hide now. When the silver puppet comes, neither of us will be able to escape. Su Yu secretly held the small golden sword, his face calm. The Ghost King laughed. Of course I want your life. Do you think you can keep your life after taking this king's things? The things he was referring to were undoubtedly the ghost-suppressing golden ring and the mysterious heavenly map. Su Yu's expression was calm. I'm afraid you don't have the ability to take my life. You should have seen my treasures. If you don't want to die, you can forget about it. Humph. The Ghost King looked at Su Yu's right palm and laughed coldly. You only have a thunder sword left, as well as the dry cloud 5 elemental formations pearl. It will not be difficult to kill you. After saying this, the Ghost King's pitch-black figure disappeared into the darkness. The power that erupted from his strong body was even greater than that of an early-stage fairy. This powerful body had forcefully withstood Su Yu's Buddhist saint's 8 characters and saved Baizhi. Even if Su Yu was slightly touched by such a body, he would lose half his life. However, Su Yu had a strange look on his face. I have a way to deal with you. With a wave of his hand, a golden halo flew out of Su Yu's sleeves towards the Ghost King. The golden rings were engraved with all kinds of runes. After infusing his zhenqi into them, 18 clear Buddha statues appeared. They chanted in Sanskrit and sang loudly. The golden Buddhist light they emitted illuminated the dark underground ruins with a golden hue. The power of the ghost-suppressing golden ring, which was infused with vital energy, could not be compared to before. This kind of Buddha nature treasure was the best counter to Ghost Kings. The golden hoop descended and was about to trap the Ghost King. There was no fear on Ghost King's face. Instead, he sneered, Do you think I don't know that you have the ghost-suppressing golden ring? I'm not surprised at all by this trump card. As soon as he finished speaking, a painting suddenly appeared in the Ghost King's bosom. An old man with his hands behind his back walked out of the painting. His entire body was transparent, and one could see the other side from one side. This was the old man in the painting. The soul was on the spiritual plane and was difficult to see with the naked eye. However, the old man's soul was almost translucent. This meant that his soul was extremely powerful and close to materialization. A divine Lord-level soul. Just who was the old man in the painting? Why did he possess a divine Lord-level soul? After the old man appeared, he raised his hand and grabbed at the void. A shocking scene appeared. The ghost-suppressing golden ring, which had been refined by Su Yu, immediately lost its connection with Su Yu and was easily grabbed by the old man's palm. Using my treasure to attack me. Haha, young man, you still have much to learn. The old man in the painting sneered. Hand over the mysterious heavenly map, and I will grant you a quick death. Su Yu's expression was as calm as ever. I don't believe that you would dare to fight here. If we fight too intensely and explode into waves, I'm afraid that the silver puppet will easily sense it. That silver puppet is not as easy to deal with as Baijian. If it comes, you will not be able to escape death. If you want to fight to the death, I will accompany you. The silver puppet was like a knife over all of their heads. The strange thing was, the Ghost King and the old man in the painting both had strange smiles on their faces. Haha, you are still too young after all. First, I have already set up a spell in these ruins. No matter how intensely we fight, the waves will not spread out. Second, I believe that you do not have the ability to fight me intensely. At the end of his speech, his face suddenly turned cold, and his old eyes shot out an icy cold light. The Ghost King also revealed a ferocious expression, his murderous intent rising. However, the strange thing was that after listening to him, Su Yu laughed eerily. I am relieved that you are prepared. Eh? The Ghost King and the old man were stunned. Listening to Su Yu's words, it seemed that he was looking forward to such a situation. Could there be an ambush around them? After careful observation, they did not see any dangerous ambush. Humph, what a pretentious act! You have lost the ghost-suppressing golden ring. What else do you have to rely on? The Ghost King coldly snorted, his figure disappearing like the wind once again. Suyu did not even think. With a flip of his palm, he took out the Cosmos Thunder Sword. With a sweep of the sword, a 500-foot-long thunderbolt sword energy illuminated the dark world. It also illuminated the Ghost King's ferocious body clearly. The Ghost King was slightly afraid, but he did not retreat. Instead, he used his strong body to fight back. With a punch, the sword energy was dispersed. The thunderbolt only caused the ghost energy on the Ghost King's body to become slightly dimmer, but it did not cause much harm to him. In an instant, the Ghost King had already closed in on Suyu. Suyu tilted his shoulder and was about to move away when he suddenly felt a chill on his back. An ice-cold voice came from behind him without any warning. "Lad, it's over." The old man in the painting had taken advantage of Suyu's distraction to appear behind him, as if he had teleported. Almost instinctively, a blue light beam flickered beneath Suyu's feet and enveloped him. The old man in the painting shook his head coldly. "It's useless. You can't stop me with just the defense of a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact." With a cracking sound, the blue light beam seemed to respond to the old man's words, as it shattered. The old man's transparent palm went straight for Suyu's back. However, Suyu revealed a faint smile at the corners of his mouth. "Is that so? If you can't stop me with just one, then what about a set?" Buzz. The space suddenly trembled, as 4 different colored balls appeared around Suyu's body at the same time. They formed a circle with the blue balls, which enveloped the Ghost King, the old man in the painting, and Suyu at the same time. The 5-colored light beam soared into the sky and formed a 5-colored seal, which trapped all of them within it. What? The complete dry cloud 5-elemental formation? Don't you only have one pearl? The Ghost King turned pale with fright. The expression of the old man in the painting also changed drastically. How could they know that this was a deliberate move by Suyu? Apart from Lu Chuyi and Xinggu, no one else had seen Suyu control the complete dry cloud 5-elemental formation. They all assumed that the faction's elders had lent him a pearl to protect himself. Suyu's body flickered, and he passed through the seal's light screen without any obstruction. He stood outside the seal and smiled. "You might be right. The battle between us might not be that intense." Chapter 573. Retract. With a low grunt, Suyu put his palms together, and the sealing cage quickly contracted. In an instant it had shrunk to 5 feet, locking the two of them within a small area. The Ghost King's face darkened. He activated a ball of ghost energy in his palms and extended his arms to support the shrinking light screen. His expression was ugly. "You hid it well. You have never used this magical treasure even when we were in danger before." Suyu had encountered the silver puppet at the 7th level of the Divine Pavilion, as well as the battle at the 8th level of the Great Bone Palace. Even then, he had still kept this trump card. Suyu did not speak. He clenched his fists again, and the dry cloud 5-elemental formation was forcefully contracted. Crack! The Ghost King groaned in pain. His arm was slightly fractured from the compression. 5 feet had been compressed to 3 feet. The Ghost King and the Soul Old Man were squeezed together, and it was still compressing. It looked like the two of them were going to be squeezed to death. The Ghost King struggled. Even though he had an invincible body, he could only slow down the compression. The dry cloud 5-elemental formation, which had been imbued with vital energy, was much more powerful than before. It had been difficult for it to trap Xinggu, but now it was easy for it to control the Ghost King, who had an even stronger body. This was because Suyu only had one vital energy crystal. If he had 3 spiritual crystals in his body condensed into crystals at the same time, he would probably be able to crush the Ghost King to death with a flip of his palm. The Soul Old Man's expression was still calm. Only when the light screen was about to crush them did he say, "Is this your trump card?" As he spoke, the Soul Old Man extended a finger and touched the colorful light screen. A vortex appeared on the extremely powerful colorful light screen, just enough for one person to pass through. His soul body turned into a wisp of green smoke and floated out. The vortex closed, and only the Ghost King was trapped within it. "A small trick," the Soul Old Man said calmly. Suyu was surprised, but not shocked. Although the dry cloud 5 elemental formation was powerful, it did not have the ability to restrain souls. Moreover, the old man had a powerful soul at the Divine Master level. Hence, Suyu was prepared. The moment the old man appeared, the thunder sword in his hand drew a lightning arc in the air. Lightning was also extremely harmful to the soul. Lightning sword. The Soul Old Man's gaze was calm. He slapped out with his palm. He was clearly a soul body, but this palm caused the space to cave in. The 500 feet long lightning arc was annihilated with a puff. Suyu was shocked. Even a top-notch early-stage fairy-like by Ijian would have to be extremely careful. However, the Soul Old Man had only used a casual palm strike. Suyu's heart sank. He had underestimated the Soul Old Man. Although he was only a soul, he was still not a powerful being that Suyu could deal with. After all, he was a divine master. Even if only his soul was left, he was still abnormally powerful. Its power is acceptable. What other techniques do you have? Just use them now. Once I attack, you won't have another chance, the Soul Old Man said calmly as he looked at Suyu's expression. Suyu immediately felt troubled. He revolved the vital energy in his body and imbued it into the thunder sword, waving it 3 times in a row. The 3 bolts of lightning sword chi merged and turned into a huge sword chi that was as thick as a water bucket. Everywhere it passed, the air exploded, the earth was compressed, and even the isolation formation began to tremble. The dust in the ruins surged and filled the dark underground world. In the air, there was a scorching aura of lightning. After merging, the lightning sword chi was extremely powerful. However, the Soul Old Man's eyes were still calm. Facing the dangerous sword chi, he extended his entire palm and clenched it. Suddenly, the space in the ruins tightened, as if it was being held by something. Then, the space around the lightning sword chi was compressed. The huge sword chi was quickly compressed to 100 feet, 50 feet, 10 feet, and finally, it was only an inch. When the lightning sword chi arrived in front of the Soul Old Man, it was only the size of a candle flame. The Soul Old Man pinched 2 of his fingers and extinguished the soul flame. He then shook his head and said, "You have exhausted your limited abilities. Are these the only techniques you have left? If that is the case, I should send you on your way." Suyu had easily destroyed it. The difference between Suyu and the Soul Old Man was immeasurable. However, Suyu was not disappointed. Instead, he revealed a meaningful smile and asked, "Is that so?" The Soul Old Man frowned as he sensed that something was amiss. Right at that moment, he suddenly felt a burning pain in between his 2 fingers. Alarmed, the old man tossed it away without any hesitation. However, it was too late for him to react. Within the candle flame that the Soul Old Man had extinguished, there was a white flame the size of a strand of hair burning quietly. His soul on the mental plane was actually being burned by the white flames. They quickly covered his fingers, burning them to the point where they became even more transparent. It was the soul flame of the white smoke glass frog. Once the flame started burning, it quickly spread from his fingers to his palm. The Soul Old Man's indifferent expression revealed a hint of surprise for the first time. "Soul flame!" As he cried out in surprise, his palm shook violently and the flame fell off. However, his palm had become extremely thin. In just a short moment, the white flame had caused significant damage to his soul. "Did you hide the soul flame in the lightning sword and use it repeatedly on purpose to make me lower my guard?" The Soul Old Man was no longer as indifferent as before. His expression had become gloomy. This lad had actually hidden a trump card, and it was a flame that specialized in restraining his soul. Is that so? Su-yu still had a meaningful smile on his face. The Soul Old Man's pupils shrank slightly. For the first time, a serious expression appeared on his face. The lad in front of him was much more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. His techniques were endless, and it was impossible to defend against them. Just as he was guarding against Su-yu, a white flame suddenly appeared in the void around him. The place where the flame had appeared was where he had first extinguished the lightning sword. Within the sunken space, it was as if a volcano had erupted, bursting forth with brilliant white flames. The eruption was so sudden that it was completely unexpected. This was the real trump card that Su-yu had prepared. The first seemingly harmless lightning sword energy contained the real killing move. The sword energy had been extinguished by the Soul Old Man, but the soul flame had hidden itself in the sunken space, exploding at this unexpected moment. Instead, the second lightning sword energy and the weak white flame had been a distraction. What? The Soul Old Man's expression changed in shock as he was engulfed by the white flame. His entire soul body had turned into a flaming man in an instant. Sizzle! Sizzle! His soul was being burned to the point that it was emitting a sizzling sound. At a speed that could be seen by the naked eye, his soul was rapidly disappearing. As he roared angrily, the Soul Old Man's soul quickly disappeared. A voice filled with both shock and anger could be heard from his mouth. "You have done something stupid. Quickly retract the flame, it will come out soon." "Who is it?" Su-yu was stunned. The Ghost King did not understand either. Then, as if he had sensed something, his pupils shrank to the size of a needle. "This aura is..." The Soul Old Man was indeed disappearing into the void, but strangely, a black scale had appeared in the void. The scales emitted an aura that caused one's heart to palpitate. Chapter 574. It's the aura of a demon. The Ghost King's eyes widened and his expression changed dramatically. A rare look of fear appeared on his face. He didn't even realize that his voice was trembling. As the Soul Old Man was burned, more and more black scales grew on his body. It was like a slumbering primordial ferocious beast was slowly awakening, emitting a terrifying aura. Its appearance terrified the Soul Old Man more than anyone else. He was abnormally shocked. Seeing that the white flames were about to melt his entire body, the Soul Old Man gritted his teeth and formed a seal with his hands. His soul body suddenly split into two. A thin soul body that looked like a cloud separated from his solid body. It was as if a gust of wind could scatter his soul. He used some kind of divine ability to forcibly tear his own soul apart. Such a technique made Su-yu secretly shocked. Soul tearing seemed easy, but the soul was originally one body, so how could it be torn apart? It was like splitting one's body into two. How difficult was that? The Soul Old Man's power had once again exceeded Su-yu's expectations. The soul that was split into two was covered in white flames, while the Soul Old Man's body was free from the soul flames. The Soul Old Man did not dare to be careless. He immediately grabbed the ghost-suppressing golden ring and poured his vital chi into it. At some point in time, Buddhist light shone and the sound of Sanskrit rang out. In terms of power, it was many times more powerful than when it was in Su-yu's hands. Under the illumination of the Buddhist light, the black scales on the old man's body shrank back into the depths of his soul at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was like the old man was extremely afraid of the Buddhist light. In just a short moment, all the black scales on his body had disappeared. Only then did the old man heave a sigh of relief. His eyes flashed with the fear of surviving a calamity. While secretly heaving a sigh of relief, the old man's face turned gloomy, and his eyes, which were staring at Su-yu, shot out a sharp murderous intent. "Idiot! Do you know that you almost caused a huge disaster? In the past, I fought a great battle with an otherworldly demon. In order to kill it, I didn't hesitate to destroy my body and perish together with it. In the end, I used my soul to suppress its remnant soul in my body. Just now, you almost released it. Do you know how many lives it will harm once it comes into being? Hearing this, the Ghost King secretly took a deep breath. It really is a demon. Demons? Was he referring to the people from the demon sect? The expressions of the Soul Old Man and the Ghost King told Suyu that the demon in their eyes was no small matter. However, what Suyu despised was the old man's words and actions. His words and actions were ruthless and decisive. There was not the slightest bit of benevolence in his heart, so how could he care about the common people? Now, he was trying to flatter himself by saying that he was sacrificing himself for the human race. If he was not wrong, he might have encountered a so-called devil. After a battle, his physical body was destroyed, and his soul was still entangled with the devil's remnant soul. So? You're the only one who can kill me, and I can't touch you for the sake of all the living beings in the world. Otherwise, I'll release this demon and cause harm to all living beings. Suyu was amused. The Soul Old Man's face was gloomy. He snorted coldly, "You can't be allowed to live." The Soul Old Man formed a seal with both of his hands. His soul body gradually emitted a blue glow. From afar, it looked like a flame, but upon closer inspection, it was abnormally cold. Even Suyu couldn't help but shiver. His whole body felt cold, as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. What is this? Suyu's heart shuddered. This was the first time he had seen a living being's soul emit such an extremely cold aura. Since we are both soul prodigies, I will use my natal soul ice flame to send you on your way. Then, you will be able to rest in peace. The old man opened his eyes, and blue ice flames engulfed his body. The surrounding space didn't change at all, but the living beings in the vicinity were all killed. The ice-cold aura directly froze their souls. Suyu's consciousness became blurry, and he was about to fall into a deep sleep. Fortunately, his soul was different from ordinary people's, so he managed to react in time. He bit the tip of his tongue, and the sharp pain made his spirit rise. He was deeply shocked. What kind of mysterious soul secret technique is this? Just the remnant power of it had almost caused him to fall into its trap. If the soul ice flame really entered his body, wouldn't his soul be immediately frozen? At such a critical moment, the white soul flame in Suyu's body gushed out. It turned into a large white flame, which collided with the soul ice flame. However, Suyu's heart sank when he saw the white flame meet the purple ice flame. It was like a tiny flame meeting a flood. It couldn't even resist for a moment before it was completely destroyed. Although they were both soul secret techniques, the two were not on the same level. The Soul Old Man laughed indifferently. Soul secret techniques are only at the lowest level, yet you still want to fight against me? What a joke. Lowest level? Could there be many different levels of soul usage? As he spoke, the boundless soul ice flame came crashing down like a flood. Suyu's soul was instantly engulfed by the enormous and frightening soul ice flame. Coldness, death, despair, and the illusion of being powerless to struggle appeared in Suyu's soul. The attack on his soul was too strong. It had never been this strong before. If the previous soul attack was like a river flowing without any danger, then the soul attack this time was like a great flood. The boundless attack directly froze Suyu's soul. However, Suyu still had the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron, which had absolute resistance against soul attacks. But the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron couldn't even react in time, and it was also frozen. Suyu's heart sank. He felt as if he had stepped on a cliff and fallen into a bottomless abyss. Even the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron had been frozen. What kind of frightening secret technique was this? Even the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron couldn't deal with it? This was the first soul attack that the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron could not defend against. This thought shook Suyu's mind deeply. His consciousness was quickly engulfed by coldness. However, before his consciousness became hazy, he made a move. He weaved a seal with one hand. To be more accurate, he had secretly prepared a seal before the soul ice flame had attacked him. As cautious as he was, even with the divine nine-dragon cauldron, he had never been careless. He had prepared a backup plan. The soul old man was surprised, but he did not dare be careless. This lad had many tricks up his sleeves, and it was impossible to defend against them. He flew backward, his eyes locked onto Suyu. He was extremely focused. However, just as he was focusing on his back, a claw filled with ghost energy suddenly extended from his back, piercing through his chest. The ghost energy had an extremely strong corrosive aura, and it quickly engulfed the soul old man's soul. The soul old man looked back in disbelief. The owner of the ghost claw, which was surrounded by ghost energy, was none other than the Ghost King, who had been trapped by the dry cloud 5 elemental formation. The soul old man could not understand. He could not understand how the Ghost King, who had been trapped, had managed to escape. He could not understand why the Ghost King had dared to attack him. Actually, what he could not understand was that Suyu and the Ghost King had worked together back in the Zhenlong continent. Now they were just fulfilling their promise. The person who had released the Ghost King was Suyu, who was on the verge of death. Chapter 575. In the sealed space, the Ghost King had been ordered by the soul old man to deal with Suyu. Now, he had even chased after Suyu. Suyu had taken the opportunity to secretly communicate with the Ghost King through telepathy, which was why this unexpected scene had occurred. The soul old man's body was quickly engulfed by ghost energy, as if he was being burned by black flames. After the initial shock, his eyes were filled with deep anger. "You dare betray me?" The Ghost King retreated and laughed coldly. "Betray me? Do you think I should be your slave and slave? You are asking for death." The soul old man snorted coldly. With a thought, he activated the Buddha's relic in the Ghost King's body. It was the existence of the Buddha's relic that allowed the soul old man to control the Ghost King's life. However, the imagined scene of the Buddha's light destroying the Ghost King did not happen. Instead, the corner of the Ghost King's mouth curled up in a mocking sneer. "I used to be a ghost demon emissary. You can control me for a while, but if you want to control me forever, you are too naive. Old man, die." The soul old man was shocked. How and when did the Ghost King escape from his control? However, the ghost energy was still in the soul room. The soul old man's body shook, and he used the same trick again, splitting a part of his soul. His eyes were filled with malice. "Good. I was tricked by the two of you. Today, if I don't kill both of you, I will not rest." Is that so? I don't think you have a chance to live." Suyu, who had just recovered from the soul ice flame, said coldly. The soul old man was severely injured, and his soul attack was interrupted. Naturally, Suyu was freed from it. He looked at Ghost King with deep meaning, a smile yet not a smile. "Humph, do you think you can defeat me? My soul body is not something you can handle." The soul old man snorted coldly. Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, a vortex suddenly appeared in the Ghost King's abdomen. Within the vortex, a mass of blood-red light shot out. The mass of blood-red light condensed into a ghost face, which bit the soul old man's body without warning. All of a sudden, the soul old man screamed in pain. A small part of his soul body was torn off by the blood-red ghost face. The ghost face chewed greedily, as if it was enjoying swallowing his soul. After losing a part of his soul, the soul old man's body rapidly expanded and contracted, showing signs of exploding. Devouring souls? Who is it? The soul old man was both shocked and furious. Chila, with a tremor, a ball of light flew out from the vortex in the Ghost King's abdomen. The silhouette gradually turned into the size of a normal human, and its body was surrounded by a bloody light. An unfamiliar face appeared in front of everyone. It was a resolute face with a high nose bridge and thick lips. His skin was a faint blood-red color, and there was a half-moon tattoo on his forehead. His entire person gave off a very sharp and strange feeling. Evil ghost bloodline? The Soul Old Man was shocked. He is your descendant, right? Why would they appear in your stomach? The Soul Old Man simply could not understand how he had managed to hide someone else in his stomach. This king's abdomen space has always had two entrances. One is in my abdomen, and the other is in the hands of my descendants. Do you have any more questions? The Ghost King sneered. His abdomen had long been refined into a spatial treasure, so it was not surprising that he had another way to enter it. However, the Soul Old Man had never imagined that the Ghost King would have such a trick up his sleeve. Does this mean that the Buddha Sarira is no longer in your abdomen space? The Soul Old Man's expression became even more unsightly. The Ghost King nodded slightly. It was left in the Zhenlong continent's ghost clan by my descendants through a secret space. Then, why did you wait until now to strike? The Soul Old Man's body expanded and contracted more violently, and his soul was on the verge of destruction. The Ghost King sneered. If I had not taken advantage of your carelessness, do you think I would have had the chance to deal a fatal blow to you? Even the Ghost King was not confident that he could defeat the soul of a divine master. Just the soul ice flame alone was something that no one present could block. The Soul Old Man was extremely furious. His slightly reddened eyes glanced at Su Yu and the Ghost King viciously, especially when he looked at Su Yu. Even if I become a ghost, I will not let you off. The person that the Soul Old Man hated the most was undoubtedly Su Yu. If he had not repeatedly played tricks, how could the Ghost King have found an opportunity to attack him? Then go and become a ghost. Su Yu snorted coldly. White flames shot out of his eyes and engulfed the Soul Old Man. His violently expanding soul could no longer withstand the attack, and with a puff, it turned into white smoke and drifted on the ground. Then, it shattered into crystal light and seeped into the ground. His death allowed Su Yu to heave a sigh of relief. After going through so much danger, he had finally schemed to kill this almighty-level soul. Su Yu was well aware of the dangers involved. In particular, the soul ice flame released by the Soul Old Man posed a real threat to Su Yu. The fact that the two of them were able to join forces and destroy the Soul Old Man's soul was partly due to luck. If the Soul Old Man had been wary of the Ghost King, they would have been the ones who had died today. Just as Su Yu was heaving a sigh of relief, he suddenly felt the gazes of the other two people. Su Yu raised his head and looked at them. The Ghost King had a relaxed smile on his face, but there was a complicated and hesitant look in his eyes. The other person was the burly man. His gaze was not friendly as he stared at Su Yu coldly. You already knew that I was in the Ghost King's stomach? The burly man said coldly. Su Yu nodded. Yes, I knew. The Ghost King had a strange look in his eyes. In order not to be discovered by the Soul Old Man, he had only spoken a few words to Su Yu. He had never told Su Yu that his descendant was in the space in his stomach. When did you know? Did you know who I was? For some reason, the burly man's tone was even more unfriendly. Su Yu said leisurely, I knew when Cho Ziming died. At the place of the legacy of elixirs, he had offended Cho Ziming and ambushed Su Yu outside the cave. But when Su Yu came out, he discovered that Cho Ziming had already been sucked dry. At that time, he could tell that this was the doing of someone with the bloodline of the evil ghost, just like him. But he pretended not to know and said that it was the doing of the silver puppet. At that time, he knew that someone with the bloodline of the evil ghost existed. In other words, the ghost clan of the 8 great ancient clans was in the 8th level of the divine pavilion. Those from the 8 great ancient clans that could come had all come. Only the ghost clan did not make any noise, as they had not entered the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Hence, the only place Su Yu could think of was the mysterious space in the Ghost King's stomach. Now, it seemed that this was indeed the case. Since you know my background, you should know how I will deal with you, right? The burly man said coldly. Su Yu's expression was calm, not surprised. Of course I know, Ghost Clan. Clan Master. The person before him was the clan master of the Ghost Clan. He was also the person who had almost killed Ling Xiaotian in the past. You transformed into the Black Snow Devil King and pretended to be a member of the Ghost Clan. Is this true? The Ghost Clan Master asked indifferently. Su Yu did not quibble. He nodded and said, Yes, the people of the outside world all think that I am a member of the Ghost Clan. Do you want to settle the score with me for tarnishing the reputation of the Ghost Clan? Unexpectedly, the Ghost Clan Master shook his head coldly. The Ghost Clan has always regarded reputation as dirt. So what if you pretended to be one? You only made one mistake. That is an unforgivable mistake. Su Yu was stunned, but he immediately understood. You mean you got the bloodline of the evil ghost from Palace Masterling? The Ghost Clan Master took a deep breath. It seems like it is true. You really got the bloodline of Ling Xiaotian. Su Yu took a few steps back and prepared to attack. He then asked calmly, Why? Do you want to take back the bloodline of the evil ghost from your clan? Chapter 576. What? Su Yu raised his brows slightly. He was skeptical. Why do you think he was besieged by the Ghost Clan? The Ghost Clan Master asked meaningfully. Su Yu clearly remembered that Ling Xiaotian had been besieged and saved by the King of Darkness. That was how he had become the Empire of Darkness Deputy Palace Master. As for why he had been besieged and who had besieged him, Su Yu had no idea. It's because his bloodline isn't the bloodline of the evil ghost, the Ghost Clan Master said in a low voice. The Ghost King, who was beside him, was surprised. Really? Hearing this, the Ghost Clan Master replied respectfully, Ancestor, there was indeed a person with a mutated bloodline in our clan. He was quite dangerous. He lost control of his bloodline and accidentally sucked the flesh and blood of several Ghost Clan members. Later, after losing control of his bloodline, he raped women. After a discussion, we decided to sentence him to death. The Ghost King furrowed his brows slightly. A mutated bloodline? Yes. Ling Xiaotian's bloodline contains a strong evil nature. If one is careless, evil thoughts will enter his body, causing him to lose his mind and do unexplainable things. We have the pure bloodline of the evil ghost, so we can't be controlled by evil thoughts. However, he is the complete opposite. He is extremely dangerous in our clan, so we made this decision. Ancestor, please forgive us. We didn't mean to kill each other. We just had to do it. Hearing this, Su Yu's heart thumped. The Ghost Clan Master's words made Su Yu feel uneasy. Raping a woman. Something similar had happened to Su Yu before. Although Fairy Feng and Lu Chuyi had different causes, the evil thoughts produced by the bloodline of the evil ghost played an important role. He had always believed that the bloodline of the evil ghost would produce evil thoughts. However, according to the Ghost Clan Master, the real bloodline of the evil ghost would not affect one's mind. What was the bloodline that Ling Xiaotian had given him? Does it contain evil nature? The Ghost King squinted his eyes and looked at Su Yu carefully again. After a while, he said seriously, Yes, it is indeed strange. His blood contains another bloodline, the Ghost King said thoughtfully. Then, he looked at Su Yu and said, What a deep evil thought. Ancestor, how should we deal with this lad? The Ghost Clan Master looked at Su Yu with complicated emotions in his eyes. This person's bloodline originates from our Ghost Clan, but it is also higher than our Ghost Clan. I don't know which bloodline it comes from. We can't let this get out. Hearing this, Su Yu secretly raised his guard. The relationship between him and the Ghost King could not be said to be very friendly. Now that the contract between them had been completed, there was even less of a connection between them. The Ghost King squinted his eyes and fell into deep thought. Hesitation flashed in his eyes. Suyu had so many magical treasures that even the Ghost King couldn't help but be tempted by them. After all, he knew that Suyu had several sets of semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts. If he could kill it, his harvest would definitely be bountiful. After a moment of contemplation, Ghost King opened his eyes regained their cool, decisively said, "This matter shall end here. Since his bloodline is not the evil specter bloodline, it has nothing to do with us," the Ghost King calmly said. Firstly, he had no reason to kill Suyu. Secondly, Suyu was abnormally powerful, and since his return to the Jojo continent was imminent, there was really no need to complicate matters. The Ghost Clan's master wasn't willing to accept this outcome. "Ancestor, with my fairy realm's battle prowess, if I cooperate with you, we might be able to kill this lad." In the Zhenlong continent, only the King of Darkness, Elder Jiu, and the corpse of the Heavenly Law Alliance's World Senior were known to the people of the fairy realm. Who would have known that the Ghost Clan's master, who rarely appeared in the world, was actually a fairy realm expert? If the two of them joined hands and the Dry Cloud 5 elemental formation was exposed, it would be extremely difficult for Suyu to deal with them. "I have already made up my mind." The Ghost King snorted calmly as he secretly transmitted his voice to the Ghost Clan's master. "Do you think that I will give up even if I have a 50% chance of defeating him? This lad is still holding my Eternal Stone King armor." The Ghost Clan's master was startled. "What? Ancestor, you don't even have a 50% chance of defeating him?" A wary look appeared on the Ghost King's face. 50% is if I have your help. If I were to fight him alone, I wouldn't even have a 30% chance of defeating him. So, it is highly likely that I will die at his hands. The Ghost Clan's master didn't witness Suyu's attack with his own eyes, but when he heard the Ghost King's words, he realized that he had probably underestimated this Zhenlong continent's youth. When the Ghost Clan's master looked at Suyu, a trace of fear appeared in his eyes for the first time. "You and I have already sworn an oath, so let's part ways here." The Ghost King took out a dim yellow scroll and threw it into the air. It immediately turned into a ball of flames and was burned to ashes. This was the Heart Oath Scroll, which contained the agreement he had made with the Ghost King. Now that the oath had been fulfilled, the contract would be destroyed by itself. Suyu's heart suddenly relaxed, as if he had just gotten rid of some kind of restraint. His whole body felt comfortable, and his thoughts became smooth and unobstructed. The Ghost King cupped his fists at Suyu and bid him farewell. However, before he left, he said in a meaningful tone, "Let me give you a piece of advice. Try not to use your mutated bloodline as much as possible. Based on my perception, the evil intent contained within your bloodline isn't something you can control. Every time you use it, the evil intent will become stronger, and in the end, your body will be occupied by the evil intent and you will become an evil puppet." Suyu's heart shuddered when he heard the Ghost King's warning. Even the Ghost King, who was a ghost, was wary of evil intent. As a human, Suyu's resistance to it was probably even lower. "Thank you for your reminder." Suyu cupped his fists at Suyu. The Ghost King's advice before he left was quite kind. The Ghost King nodded and put the Ghost Clan master into the space in his stomach. He then flew into the air and left. "Let's part ways here. You should also leave as soon as possible. This place's isolation formation has already been broken, and the silver puppet must have already sensed the fluctuations here. You shouldn't stay here for long." The Ghost King paused for a moment, then revealed an enigmatic look. "You should leave the Zhenlong continent as soon as possible. If you delay any longer, something unexpected might happen." Such an inexplicable reminder confused Suyu. Leaving the Zhenlong continent as soon as possible? Is it because something bad is about to happen on the continent? As he looked at the Ghost Clan master, his expression became stern, and he wore an unfathomable expression. The Ghost King didn't explain anything but just flew up. Suyu didn't want to stay here any longer, so he flew up into the sky. The Ghost King headed east, while Suyu headed west. However, just as they were about to fly up into the sky above them suddenly darkened. The bright and beautiful divine pavilion's sky suddenly became gloomy, and their field of vision suddenly became dark. The surrounding space became as dark and gloomy as an underground ruin. However, when they looked around, they discovered that the darkened sky only covered a radius of 10,000 feet above their head. Woo! Woo! The rapid pressure caused the air to emit an ear-piercing whine. The black sky had unexpectedly collapsed. It was engulfed by the wind and clouds, and the whole sky had completely collapsed. The ferocious pressure crushed the ruins into dust. Suyu and the Ghost King, who were in the sky, suffered from an extremely powerful pressure, and they fell from the sky. The terrifying pressure made Suyu and the Ghost King feel like they were leaves in the wind, and they couldn't resist it at all. Seeing that they were about to fall from a height of 1,000 feet, Suyu's expression changed drastically. His whole body flickered with a 5-colored light, and the dry cloud 5 elemental formation appeared to protect his surroundings. Bang! The dry cloud 5 elemental formation collided with the ground, creating a giant pit that was 30 feet deep. The 5-colored light screen dimmed, and Suyu's mouth was dripping with blood. It seemed like he had sustained heavy injuries. Looking at the Ghost King, he wasn't any better. Even though his physical body was strong, under that kind of pressure, the corner of his lips turned red. The two of them reacted at the same time. They didn't have the time to check what had happened, and they immediately turned and ran, flying out of the black sky. But before they could move, wisps of black clouds suddenly rose from the ground. The clouds covered a radius of 10,000 feet, and they were 3 inches thick. It caused the sky and ground of the ruins within 10,000 feet to turn black. Thump, thump. A loud sound came from the depths of the ground. It was powerful, and everyone could hear it. Thump, thump. Thump, thump. The sound of the vibrations was like the beating of a human's heart. The frequency was getting higher and faster, as if something was awakening. Thump, 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 thump. In between breaths, the heartbeat was like a turbulent river, beating continuously. The black clouds on the ground shook again and again, following the sound of the heartbeat. Suyu realized that his own heart was also beating intensely, following the sound of the heartbeat. At the same time, a hair-raising aura slowly seeped out from the depths of the ground. That aura was cold, cruel, bloodthirsty, and demonic. It's a demon. Impossible. He should have been killed along with that guy's soul. Why is he still alive? The Ghost King's face was filled with fear. As a ghost, even he was afraid of demons. No, he was terrified of them. Run! The Ghost King's face was filled with fear. When he had encountered the silver puppet, he had only felt fear. However, when he encountered this demon, his face was filled with terror. Suyu retreated without hesitation. His face was gloomy. What exactly is a demon? How powerful is it? Sizzle! Suddenly, Suyu heard some movement behind him, so he turned around to look. The churning black mist actually gathered towards the center and gradually condensed into a human figure. The black fog, which covered a radius of 10,000 feet, gathered together in the blink of an eye. It was a familiar figure. It was the Soul Old Man. The only difference was that the Soul Old Man's body was covered in black scales. Those scales seemed to have a life of their own. It was as if they were breathing, constantly expanding and contracting, causing one to shudder. The Soul Old Man's eyes were no longer human eyes. Instead, they were a pair of deep purple pupils, which looked extremely evil. As his body took shape, an aura that caused even the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion to tremble was emitted. Space ripples appeared around the human figure, enveloping him within them. They were preparing to transport this being, whose aura surpassed that of the fairy realm, away. However, the Soul Old Man, who was covered in scales, raised his head and shot out a black beam of light. That beam of light was even more frightening than the beast head in the Great Bone Palace. The space ripples were instantly dispersed, disappearing without a trace. At the same time, the black beam of light pierced through the sky and struck the top of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Bang! A thunderous sound could be heard. The bright sky was shattered and a huge gap appeared. Waves of aura from the outside world surged into the gap. That aura was completely different from the Zhenlong continent and the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. It was the aura of Jiuzhou,